OTB AM with Gillette in association with Movember. Effortless shave, magnificent modes.
7:30 on this Wednesday morning, the 2nd of November, and you're very welcome along to OTB AM, brought to you with Gillette in association with Movember. Effortless shave, magnificent mo. You can sign up or donate now at Movember.com. We're with you until 10 AM this morning, as per usual. Galway man, broadcaster and journalist Johnny Wood, good morning.
Good morning, Shane.
Cork man and producer extraordinaire Colin Boothby, good morning.
That's a lovely introduction.
There you go. Well, I think we should mention, the way like it mentions your club in the county
That's
programmes.
really nice.
I think we should.
That. Nice context. Usually with Jerry, just gets Colin and Johnny are here.
Yes, we've Cork, Monaghan and Galway represented. I didn't do your clubs, but I wasn't aware of your clubs, so apologies, lads.
St Brendan's, yeah.
St Brendan's. Colin, would you like to give a shout out to your club?
College Corinthians, Adamida's, and Everton as well. Dennis Irwin.
Lovely.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
60 did he the other day?
And of course, Satellite Taxis FC, established in 2013, that we talked about recently. Really great club and going places now. Approaching the 10-year anniversary, been to Turner's Cross many times, have won many trophies, and going from strength to strength. Fun fact about Satellite Taxis FC:
who are they sponsored by?
No taxi drivers.
Right.
No taxi drivers.
No taxi drivers.
Right. Brilliant. Lads, Champions League night last night, quite enjoyable, I thought.
I watched the Spurs game.
Spurs game was just mad. I mean, at different points you're looking at the table. Like, I have a list here of someone had very kindly done out a list of the times and how the groups changed. So 8:39 p.m. Sporting lead 1-0, Spurs were dropping to second. 8:47 p.m. Marseille lead 1-0, Spurs dropped to third. Then at 9:17 p.m. Spurs of course equalised, moved back to second. 9:21 p.m. 4 minutes later Frankfurt equalised, which put Spurs top. 10 minutes later, 9:31, Frankfurt go ahead, so Spurs back to second. And then of course 9:59 p.m. just before the end of the game, Spurs get the winner to finish top. Football is comes at you fast, lads, and Antonio Conte will have been in the stands pretty pleased with what he saw. Maybe not in the first half, but they got there in the end.
Yeah, it's good to get Phil Egan as a bit of a sounding board before he came on, and he reminded me, which I hadn't seen, that the Marseille manager was imploring the players, by the way, we want to get into Europa League group stages here, even if we don't win this game, which in the space of a few minutes was quite mad. They left themselves with a 3-on-1 effectively, where like Spurs had given up on winning the game. They were taking the ball into the corner well before injury time.
Yeah.
And whatever you think about like the third place, I think it has some merits, you can debate, but the third place dropping into the Europa League, Marseille did have that as a nice cushion. And let's be honest, Marseille weren't going to win any Champions League this year. It would have been a realistic cushion for them to get into, and they don't anymore.
It was just, it was one of those games, Colin, that it was enjoyable to watch. The atmosphere looked fairly mad in the Stade Velodrome. As it tends to do.
For me, that was the most like the commentators, Glenn Hoddle, and who was doing. Can't remember who was doing. I'm not familiar with his name, actually, the guy who was doing the main commentary on what I was watching, but he kept going on about it. Possibly to make the point that we're actually at this game, because a lot of commentary is done now like remotely, but he was like, this is amazing. The bombs have been the fireworks have been going off all day. Glenn Hoddle is still jittery beside me, but like in a developed country, and I say that in the nice possible way, because I think the richer the people going to games, generally the less atmosphere you get, because it is what it is. That atmosphere was unbelievable. Like, it was unbelievably noisy, and I think it affected Spurs in the first half.
Definitely. And to think as well that attendance was down 13,000 because of the ban that they have with the fan in line for attempted murder, firing a missile at an injured Frankfurt fan in September, so they were punished for that. And as you say, it didn't seem to affect the atmosphere at all. And also, Johnny, you were mentioning in the pre-show meeting that like it's rare that you get an atmosphere like that in the first world country in matches nowadays, but with Marseille it doesn't seem to affect them at all, that their geography, they're just so passionate about it. And you're watching it visually. If you had the volume off, you would think, there's probably nothing to this match because one side of the stadium is completely empty, and then you turn the volume on and it was incredible. And like BT made the wise decision to just allow the celebrations to flow once Marseille scored in the stroke of half time, and for about 30 seconds there was silence from the commentators as we heard the crowd. And I wonder that Jonathan Liu article have anything to do with the commentators staying silent, because that has caused a lot of controversy.
It has. For anyone who hasn't seen this, Jonathan Liu in The Guardian, so the headline, commentators have taken over but it's time to let the game do the talking. And he goes on, it's a criticism of commentary and how much maybe commentators talk. So he says that he talks about the list of names in front of commentators. He says so. He starts off, somewhere in a reinforced concrete bunker in the Northern Hemisphere, Paul Dempsey is still talking. He was talking long before you turned the television on. You can be sure he'll be talking long after you turn it off. He's got a list of names in front of him, stats and facts, reserves of time and patience that will outlast any human living or dead. So he goes on and says, here's Lautaro Martinez, who has never scored a volley in October. He's taking the piss. Lays it off to Francesco Caputo, who owns 4 hats. That's Jackson Bourke on the Sampdoria bench, who joined in the summer from Fighting Spiders in the Maltese Premier Division, whose next game you can catch on BT Sport 8 on Thursday at 11 a.m. Like, he goes a little bit far, in my opinion, Jonathan Liu. I don't know what you lads make of the way commentary is developed, but I mean, he's very, very critical. He even, he sacrilegiously criticises Peter Drury at the end, and he goes, overwrought, emotion-soaked commentary specifically geared towards the viral clip market. Milanese mayhem, Peter Drury will shout after a dramatic late winner. A San Siro drama to end all dramas. And you think, alright Peter, it's a 1-0 win in Europa League Group K, let's not go overboard. But like Peter Drury and that shouting that he does and the little quips that he comes up with after a goal makes it for me. He makes a Europa League Group K game interesting, and that I think is the point.
Totally, but I think it's such a subjective thing. Commentary is that I think they fundamentally all perform at the same level in terms of if you were to read a transcript of what they said for 90 plus minutes, you would say it's pretty consistent with each other. They got everything factually correct. So really then it's just a matter of taste and what voice do you like and what intonations do you prefer as well. And I'd be along with you, Shane, like I do like the roller coaster style of they kind of awake you from your slumber, like if something happens. And also, like, I'd often, I'd have a match on and I'd be doing the washing up or something, which would mean just out of sight of the television. So I'm relying on the commentator's tone to change to get back into the room. So I can't have a flat tone of a commentator, Now, I personally love the colour that a voice adds. But you were saying, Johnny, that it was up to you. You'd have no commentary for certain games.
Yeah, do you remember, was it like initially the red button, you could do that? You could, this is going back a long time now, where you could just make it as the most as live experience, where like you get the noise of the crowd, which last night would have been perfect for that. Now on the other hand, I'm like you, Colm, like my attention span is getting worse and worse and worse and worse. So I'm like probably on my phone or on something else. So I do need like to be kind of brought back into it. But commentators, there's so much football on TV now as well that a lot of it does feel almost a little bit contrived in terms of their interest in the game. And I don't want them necessarily to tell me how the game is going. That's for me to judge, like, if that makes sense.
But do you not get little tidbits of information from a co-commentator, a former footballer or a manager who has more insight, granted, than any of us in this room?
He may not have.
Well, he may
be absolutely useless,
but more experience in.
And he may be on RTE for like the last 15-20 years and still hasn't been told how to pronounce grammar properly.
Well, that's an issue. Yeah,
just because you may have like 100 international caps or whatever it is, just can you not tell this person it's not like have went, it's have gone? Do you know what I mean? So get the grammar right. I mean, it's time and time again. That would annoy me now.
Yeah. No, look, I get what you're saying, and I think.
He's done well there, like, and you have all these like constants, like, and it's
cliches
like,
as well, like
cliches, and it's like, well,
but can you imagine that the never-ending internal debate that the commentators and co-commentators have for every match is like, when should I speak here? Should I speak here? Should I leave this go? What's the best thing to do here? So you're making those decisions 100 times a game, right? And for the co-commentator especially, when do I come in here? So they're waiting for the cue of the commentator. I mean, really, we should have Nathan Murphy in here telling us exactly how to do it. But like, I'd be partial to a bit of Nathan commentary because I think he really adds to it.
It's on the radio though.
Yeah, I know, but it's the same topic. Like,
because on the radio you're describing it. On the TV, I can see pretty much everything here.
No, but I think if Nathan was on TV,
a lot of the time you're not adding anything to me. You're telling me like stuff that I already know, and I don't really want to hear you. So you're talking for 90 minutes, like.
Stephen Doyle made the point with us yesterday, who was a commentator with ourselves and Off the Ball, Premier League commentator. He was making the point that there are people at home, elderly people or people who have no conversation at all during the week, and for them, like, that commentator is literally in their homes.
It's company.
It's company.
And
like even Kathy
like
McNamee, our producer Kathy McNamee, one of our producers, is pointing out here, this isn't the first time Lou has written about this. Wrote about it like a year ago too, and broke down the amount of time the commentators now talk compared to before. Got himself in a lot of trouble then too, so clearly something he really feels to wade in on again. Like, he's got what he wanted. We're all talking about it. We've clicked into his article, so clearly.
No, I believe that he believes this. Like Kathleen's pointed out, this isn't the first time he said it, and I really, really love Jonathan Lew's writing. I think he's a really imaginative journalist. So I believe him that this is what he thinks, and I think it's an interesting topic. I think it's worth bringing up because I think it's polarising, completely polarising what people think about commentators, and it always goes down to examples. But generally, you're going to hear, "I hate so and so." because they ruined the game for me.
Yeah,
I would not be on that line at all.
That's fair enough. Like, I'm sure not everyone's a fan of us. Like, and I've no issue with that. But like, in fairness to. Fairness to Bruce Millington, the race post, he's been banging this drum for a lot longer than that, and he's been writing about the race post for, I'd say, the go to 10 years. And absolutely, if there are 2 goals in a game and the goal takes like whatever a mini second each, do I need you to tell me stuff with the other lad or lady for 90 minutes? No.
But what do you want? What are you expecting from your? I'm
not blaming the commentators. Just I prefer to turn it off much of the time.
Okay.
I understand how commentators can be polarising. Like, I can't stand Martin Tyler as a commentator, for example. Now I think
gone.
He's gone. He's gone comfortable in himself, where he's like, I'm a legend now.
And that befalls a lot of people,
especially like watching Liverpool games. Like, and I'm not even a Liverpool fan, but there are times when Liverpool scored a goal, a fairly big goal, and you're like, you'd swear they just won a corner, maybe.
Yeah.
In terms of the intonation of his voice, he just gives it nothing. He doesn't give it what he used to give.
Long live Peter Brackley. Like.
Excuse my grammar there.
Peter Brackley just instantly brought back to the 90s.
Yeah.
Football Italia.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's incredible.
Beautiful.
Channel 4. But what I don't understand, and it seems to me that this has only emerged in the last decade or so, maybe even half decade, is the hatred that Martin Tyler receives. I'm firmly on Camp Tyler.
Are you?
Yeah, and even Emma beforehand
today?
was saying, like, I might be misrepresenting Emma here, and she'll tell me if I am, but I think she said that she's not a big fan of Tyler's, and I've heard that from loads of people.
No, I can't listen to him anymore.
So you're another one.
Yeah, I can't listen to Tyler.
But what's wrong with Tyler?
He hasn't lost the enthusiasm.
Exactly. At his age of like 30 odd years of Premier League, I'd have lost enthusiasm 100%. Like, and there's so much football on now. There's so much money in the game. The atmosphere is not as good at all at a lot of these games. You're doing so much of it. Of course, you're going to lose interest.
Yeah.
If you're paid,
have we just decided that he's lost interest? No. If you listen to him from the 90s or the 90s to now,
he was different then.
He just sounded young. He sounded younger.
No, he sounded more enthusiastic. He sounded like he was enjoying being there more.
This is his friend, personally, because I think that guy brought the best out of him.
Consistent.
Controversial.
Peter Drury has been consistent forever and always. Clive Tilsley, and I'm biased, I love Clive Tilsley. I've met the man.
What about George Hamilton?
George is great. Like, George, obviously, of Italian 90 and George of now are possibly different as well.
Yeah,
that's why it's so subjective, this thing.
But
I think George of now is not at a Tyler. Like, I still enjoy listening to George, whereas Martin, I don't enjoy listening to Martin.
Yeah, I actually quite like George Hamilton, but the bugbear in our house was that in Ireland games that were so tense during the 90s, and George would be like writing the result with 5 minutes to go, and my owl would be like, it's not over yet, they could still score, it's like it's 1-0, and often then there would be like an equaliser. But once I got over my father's bias against him, George Hamilton, the Hamilton scores as well, he's a man of the arts. He's just a really nice guy, and he's getting on, and he doesn't sound like he's lost.
No, he has passion for it, definitely. Like, I watched the 21s played the same night as Ireland played Scotland there a few weeks ago, and he was doing that, and like you say, he might as well have been commentating in Italian 90. Like, he treats every game like it's the most important, which is fantastic. That's exactly what you want. But like going back to Tyler, right? I have to say on Tyler here, sorry, because I don't understand the abuse he gets. You see, for me, I associate his voice from back in the day, hearing him on Sky, and we never had Sky growing up. So I associate him with this pining. So I want to subscribe to the Tyler voice, and I couldn't.
He used to go, we'll be back after this, and it's live. Yeah. And now he's like, and it's live.
Yeah, because do you know why?
He doesn't care anymore.
It's not that.
He doesn't care.
It's not that, right?
It's live.
So he was told, he doesn't sigh afterwards like, it's live.
Like, do I have to hear?
What happened there was he did it organically for a few times, and everyone was like, that's the Tyler thing.
For the big games.
Then it became contrived, and then he did it, and then he got so much abuse for making it contrived. He was like, well, I'm going to say it because it's a cue for the ad, but I'm not going to be as passionate about it because I'm getting abuse for being passionate. So I think the Tyler corner he's in now, he's in a difficult place. He can't do any right for a lot of people. Like, the only thing that will make people happy about Martin Tyler is if he stops commentating, and I don't think he's there yet.
Martin Tyler,
I think he still provides a lot.
He couldn't lace Tilsley's boots. And like Tilsley's never lost.
This is like
he's never lost.
This is like pub talk. Like, he could have laid Tilsley's. Like, they're just two commentators. Like,
the irony of it is, I've done co-commentary on Galway Bay FM,
but you do it in an enjoyable way.
I absolutely love it.
You be asking for lifts home and all in the middle of commentary. So like, there's a bit of crack out of your commentary.
Wouldn't fly on Sky.
I've done with Oisin Langan a little bit sort of, was that during COVID maybe? In the recent years anyway, and I absolutely love it. But if I were on the radio, a load of people wouldn't like listening to me at all, as is the case anyway. So you're like, well, fair enough, I get it. Like, it's just, so it's not for me, some of these people. And
it's subjective, and
a lot of the time, I prefer going to a game. I don't want any contact at the game, and I can scan what's going on. And last night was one of the times where you feel like, God, I wish I was at that game. That atmosphere is amazing, and I don't need the commentator.
Des Cathal, like when you listen to I think he's retired now, isn't he? But I mean, when you listen to a race with him, it's just iconic. Yeah. Murray Walker with Formula 1, Bill McLaren. Like there are people who are
Barry Davis is like, my favourite. Yeah.
Would you see Des's commentary then would be completely different to the British commentators, and a lot of people would say Des wasn't being descriptive enough about what was going on. And I've had this conversation with Des, like, well, I don't want I want to describe like as I see it, but I don't want to be making an editorial judgment on the race. Yeah. Whereas in Britain what you get is a 3-horse terrible race on a Monday, and they're making it sound like the Gold Cup. I'm like, well, you have to have some context here. Like, don't be getting excited about a race that's worth $2.5 with 3 bad horses.
But if they don't get excited, then they're accused of Tyler's lack of passion.
You need context though as well. You need, what level am I at here?
There's a compilation, I don't know if it was on TikTok or if it was on YouTube, but someone has done a compilation of Tyler in the last 12 months of fairly big goals, and most of them were Liverpool goals, and just the general ambivalence towards the ball hitting the back of the net. It's almost like, I don't know if VAR has inhibited him in his commentary. Is he waiting for the goal to be scratched off so he's not giving it loads? But
no, do you know what it is?
That's an excuse.
He's often commentating with Gary Neville and Jamie Carragher, and I think he's letting them. He's kind of letting them do a lot of the talking now, because Gary Neville never stops talking on commentary, and same with Jamie, right? Yeah. So he's kind of stepping back a bit. But in the live notes here, someone's put in our own team, gone are the days of Aguero.
Yeah,
right.
That's gone.
But he can't force it. Maybe he's just not that excited about football anymore.
Exactly.
But
so then you give the job to someone who is.
Yeah. But hold on. But I still don't think he lacks passion for the game. I think he's longing for those Aguero moments, and he's getting through all these games. I know. And he's actually doing exactly what Johnny said, which is, why can't commentators like in the racing, the 3 English commentators, put it into context? And I actually think he's very good at putting games into context.
I think he's lost interest.
I don't think he has.
I think he has.
And I think if he lost interest, he'd be gone. I think he'd walk away.
But sure, was he not kind of like on the way out a few years ago, but there was a clamour to get him back? Am I wrong?
But sorry, I don't want this to come across as ageist. I don't care what age Martin Tyler is. If Martin Tyler is 110 and he still has the same enthusiasm as he always did, I'm all for it. He just doesn't. I mean, he just doesn't. He seems like
he's matured into the grandfatherly type commentator for me. Look, I love his, because I associate his voice with something that I always wanted to can never get, and now I have him, and I'm happy with him.
But Micheál O'Hare always had enthusiasm right until the end. Forget it games, and Martin Tyler doesn't have that. I feel. I mean,
think he does.
Me and my brother have been watching games at home, and like I've done that. What you're saying, Colin, I've gone out to the kitchen and waiting for the intonation to draw me back in.
Not if Big Martin's at the end.
I'll come back in, and there has been a goal, and I'm like, Jesus Christ! I mean, there was a goal, but
I'd be very sad. I'd be very angry about that now.
But his voice
commentator contract that we actually signed together.
Yeah,
you're supposed to tell me when to come back into the room.
For a number of times.
We should do Gaelic commentators tomorrow, because that's another very, very divisive.
What's some of the YouTube comments?
Some great comments coming in here. Like Danny Mack, different class for P3 times, job done. Jimmy McGee. That's incredible. That's Maradona's goal, isn't it?
Yeah. He was one of the interviews I did in college. I sat with Jimmy McGee for 2 hours one time in the Students' Union bar in UCD, and I mean, the man is. He talked about, even in the Cooley Mountains when he was younger, running around fields, like fake commentating on games involving himself, kicking the ball to himself. Like born to be a commentator, but had enthusiasm right the way up. Whether it was Olympic Games, whether it was Gaelic football, whether it was Maradona in '86, he just always had enthusiasm. So I think that's the number one prerequisite to be a commentator, is be fucking enthusiastic about the thing.
I'm still in my 30s, and I struggle to get motivated by the 12, 15 or the early game on a Saturday much of the time, and I'm like, another. And
but if it's a good commentator on, you'll be like, all right, yeah, I'm into it.
Just a lot.
Peter Drury, by the way, he's not on our TV screens enough, because he's I don't know if he's on BN Sports or the American channels, whatever he is. Jim Beglin's another one.
Tony Gubba.
Bring him these back. Lads are just...
What do you want for a 12:30 p.m. commentator?
I actually don't want a game at that time.
That's the other thing. So it's not the commentator.
I'm saying I'm not blaming the commentator. It's hard to motivate yourself.
I get it.
And then if it's not in your heart, it's contrived. And then how do you find the balance? And I think Big Martin hasn't.
People aren't stupid. You can tell when it's contrived.
I think that's a good point, right? So then if you're struggling with the motivational aspect of it, then I think you become informative and go probably stats heavy. And I think then you're providing a service to the viewer. Like the only commentator I dislike is saying exactly like you were saying earlier, is literally saying exactly what I'm seeing already. I have no interest in that. But I find it's honestly, that's why it's subjective, so it's not about the voice. So what more can a commentator really do other than kind of telling you what's happening and then throwing over to the analyst next to them? That's really the commentator's job, like.
Yeah.
Conor McNamara too on BBC, I enjoy.
Dave McIntyre, I think, and someone has commented on the it's spinning moment for the Johnny Sexton drop goal against France. Like those moments are brilliant. Dave's brilliant. I don't know. The commentary has maybe become a bit diluted, and
so is sport. There's too much sport. Like there's so much sport.
You love saying that.
I know, but there is like
it's never going to stop though. That's not. We're not. It's like the internet.
Less was more when you didn't have Sky. Like that was because he wasn't.
We're never going back there. It's not going to happen. Like that's not going to happen again.
There's a lot of love for Peter Drury in the comments as well. Was it Peter Drury when Ronaldo returned to United for the Newcastle game, his first game back, did the whole spiel for the 2 minutes before the game? And some people are like, oh, it's fake, it's planned, it's pre-scripted.
I don't mind that.
Brilliant.
It's rare as well.
If it's good, I don't mind it.
Martin Morrissey likes one of them now before a final, and our own Tommy Walsh.
Yeah, Tommy Walsh. Irish Eyes here in the comments are saying this is getting like an episode of Slight Tangent, and it is, because this actually, we could talk about this all day long.
We could.
But Shane, speaking of different class,
here we go.
You played football with Jermaine Jenas last week.
That was the segue. It took 20 minutes.
Segue, yeah. I was waiting for you to get there. Jesus Christ.
Jermaine Jenas? Yeah.
No biggie.
I came back there, was away for the weekend, came back yesterday. Shane was like, oh, how was JJ? And he was like, oh yeah, it's very good. I was like, what's his touch like? Like, what's he like? I'm fascinated by this now. And Shane was like, oh no, he's like very, very good, very neat and tidy, lacks fitness. And then we talked about that for a few minutes. And then Shane just threw it in there, buried the lead, being like, and I scored as well.
I did,
so Shane, can you talk us through the
It was a good game. There was a 7-a-side in the rooftop.
Talk us through the goal through commentary.
We want the goal through your commentary.
Give us the commentary.
I can't.
You were interviewing Jermaine Jenas.
Because I'd be biased. I'd talk about the finish being the best finish you've ever seen, because I finished it. It was played down the left-footed, bottom right corner. I have to say it was a tidy finish.
Who passed you the ball?
JJ.
Jermaine Jenas.
He assisted.
No, he was good. He didn't score. Now it was a 3-3. I think it was a 3-3 draw. It finished. He didn't score, but he was good quality in terms of his pass and his technical touch. You can tell when he's a top level footballer, or was a top level footballer. Now he says he hasn't been playing the last 7-8 years. Hasn't been playing much football in terms of five-a-side. He's avoided.
To throw that caveat out there, like, I haven't been, just in case I'm like a little bit crap here.
But he's even avoided, like even the charity games, the 11-a-side matches. He's avoided all of that. Now he's in great shape. He's obviously he's doing gym work and stuff.
Yeah, it's the same with Rio Ferdinand, where they were both very slight when they played. And
he's got bigger muscles now than he ever did it when he was a
I gave out about him as a co-commentator only about 2-3 months ago.
Yeah, well the night before he was on co-coms. The night before I was with him, he was co-coms for the Spurs game, the VAR 2.5 minute goal, and he was going on about the goal shouldn't have been disallowed and stuff.
He's a good lad.
Nice lad.
Yeah.
Nice lad, Jermaine.
What did he make of you?
I thought it was a legend. I was asking him in the interview, who's the best midfielder you've ever played with, apart from myself, obviously. He was full of... Now, Luka Modric, I think he named as the best midfielder he's played with, but full of praise for Robbie Keane in terms of a player. Says he's the most intelligent footballer he ever played with.
Wow.
Just could read each other. Telepathic, kind of. And you'll know from watching that Spurs team and highlights of in the back, like Jimmy Jenas often set up Keane and vice versa, and there was just something. Even Berbatov as well was involved, and I mean Berbatov Keane up front was just remarkable, and that Tottenham team was something else. But I like Jenas, and he spoke very honestly about, was it the Capello days? He only has 19 England caps, I think, which is a regret for him. He was in the form of his life around the 07, 08, and he feels like he didn't maybe get the chances he deserved with England.
He's an interesting player. I always thought Jenas is on the cusp of being a very good player, and just never quite got there. He had great moments. I remember in Nottingham Forest he was one of the hot prospects in English football, and then for Newcastle he scored that great goal against Manchester United at St James's Park. United won that game 6-2, and he scored the goal, right? This is 2003. And it was an absolute thunderbolt from about 30 yards out.
How would Tyler,
and who was commentating?
Tyler described it?
It was Tyler.
Oh, great
do you know what he said? Do you know what he said? Jermaine Jenas. Jenas by name, Jenas by nature. After he scored that goal. Now that is
dad jokes.
And also around that time,
what was the goal like again? Like it was a long range.
Like on the half volley, and it was rising in the top corner. Barthez. The great thing about Barthez was he conceded a lot of goals, but he made every goal look great because he'd really dive for them. He'd really
like a
go for
conversation. I was gone from like Jenas to Barthez.
No, but that's important. Just this is Tyler. And also around the same time, England played Japan in a friendly. Tyler was commentating when Sky Sports used to have their friendlies, and Shinji Ono scored for Japan. And he said, oh no for Japan, oh no for England.
Oh, that's pretty. I'll take that one.
You know, Johnny's got. So I'm telling you, look, there's a lot in the Tyler cabinet that he just he stores away for a rainy day.
Jenas is one of these fellas. Obviously, he's doing magazine type shows as well. He's done the One Show, and you know, he's interviewing Tom Hanks and Jennifer Aniston week in, week out, and these people as well. So he's he loves the media and loves getting himself out there. But he spoke very warmly as well about Bobby Robson and the impact he had. Very good on the Kieran Dyer, Lee Bowyer fracas that he was. I think he was just taken off Jenas for Newcastle that day, and he said he was shocked because himself, Bowyer, Dyer, Jonathan Woodgate and someone else,
the lads,
were used to sit in a group for breakfast at training every single morning, and like they were the best of mates, Bowyer and Dyer, and just apparently came out of the blue, this brawl.
Right.
But it's a good insight, and he's a Nottingham Forest fan. He's a Nottingham boy originally. So Roy Keane, he spoke about trying to face off Roy Keane when he was 19 or 20, first coming into the Premier League, and Keane kind of just they hit each other hard in a tackle, and Jenas tried to say something to him, and he said Keane just looked at him and smirked as if to say, "Kid, I've been there, done that. I've had people trying this with me a lot over the years, so you're not going to intimidate me."
This interview is available.
It's available wherever you get your podcasts. OTB football stream. So we played it out in Saturday's show, but he was really good, I have to say, Jermaine Jenas. So let us know in the comments, we did this on Saturday as well, who's the best footballer you've ever played 5 or 7-a-side with?
Does it have to be famous?
Well, preferably no, it doesn't have to be.
There's a guy I'm thinking of, but not famous.
Yeah, that's fine. Like,
well, that's grand, but preferably, you know, even if it's an actor or a singer or a comedian.
Do you just want to name all the people you played football?
No, my list is pretty poor. I played against Glenn Crowe, I was saying, on Saturday, and he was a burly, like, just ran into a brick wall when you hit into Glen Crowe. But some of the people on Saturday in the text had great ones.
Oh, really?
Playing with like former League Ireland players and Premier League players. Bolo's ending on holidays, just bumped into Tenerife or something.
That's class. Yeah.
Playing with Zendon.
Well, I grew up in Mitre, so I played with Mitre a lot.
Did you?
But Mitre didn't stand out that much when we were younger. Like, he just got better and better as he got older. And then
great example.
Like mid to late teens, then he became unbelievable.
It's funny.
He was always a great athlete, but he'd be man into hurling too, so he was doing loads of different sports. And then I played against Kevin Long, Munster Senior League. He stood out. Oh my God! Well, everyone kind of knew he was about 17 at the time, and I was playing left wing, and he was centre half, but he was left-sided centre half, so I didn't really have much interaction with him. But like, you were trying to keep the ball away from him. Definitely, I didn't fancy taking him on. Like,
it's technically good. These footballers are, aren't they?
He was. Do you know what it was? His anticipation.
Right.
So he didn't actually do very much. But the reason he didn't do very much is he saw everything coming.
Yeah. Could read the game.
Yeah.
That was the thing about Jenas last week as well. He was kind of, doing the whole scanning over the shoulder, and he just knew where everyone was on the pitch, and he'd be passing you the ball without looking. He just knew where you were, kind of thing. Which seems like an obvious thing, but I mean, for a Premier League footballer. But I mean, when you're playing against normal people, then it becomes quite obvious that he's fully aware of where everyone is on this pitch.
Nothing normal about Shane Hannon.
Nothing normal, and scored the goal. So thank you for bringing that up, Colin.
I just wanted to hear more about it. I'm very interested in it. Did he call you Shane, or was it like, here, pass?
Well, I went up to him at the start and I said, look, we were all introduced, like the 7 of us on our team were kind of clapping hands and trying to learn names, and I very funnily went up to him and said, "Oh, Jermaine, is it?"
That's good.
Everyone on the team laughed and thought it was very funny. He goes, "You can actually call me you can call me JJ if you want." And I thought this is great. So the whole game I'm there, JJ. I even shortened it to J at one point. I was like, "Are we this close now?" So yeah, we were.
You should have ended up like son at the end of the game, like just pass it over here, son. Like,
yeah. Well, I scored and he didn't. So
there'll be a Phoenix from the Flames, like recreation of this at some stage, either in the boozer or on the show.
Yeah,
like it was a left-footed low finish into the corner.
Yeah,
left-footed low corner.
I can almost see it. It was just
keeper dived.
It went exactly where you wanted to go.
Perfect.
I can almost see it.
Was keeper wearing gloves?
He was wearing gloves. Yeah.
He stayed in goal.
Oh, he was a 6'3" tattooed burly keeper.
You start in goal and the guy just wanted to go out, like, so he did that thing where he turned his body away.
Proper goalkeepers.
Who's next?
No, I have to say it was. I landed and I was thinking, this is going to be a media day, so it's all media. But I was the only person there to interview Jermaine. The rest were the lads were all models or Instagram, social media influencers. Yeah. So they were just this group of very handsome fellas and myself just playing football on a rooftop in London. So what a day. A lot of
it's great, isn't it? Your legs turned out really well.
It's highlight
off Mailhouse.
Proper highlight. We've got some of the comments in on the YouTube stream as well, lads, on the commentary. Nathan Murphy, probably one of the best, says Shifty Lad. We'd be biased in this.
Yeah, always knows what to say.
Yeah, gone are the days of Aguero. Only the biggest goal in the history of the Premier League. Yeah, but those days of Tyler commentary are gone.
No, I think Brian makes a good point.
As in, we can never have that moment again.
Well, no, Brian's saying that the example of Aguero is like that's an outlier in every commentator's life.
Sorry, you're going to have that.
Was excellent. I haven't mentioned. Sorry. And I've played Astro with him, and this doesn't surprise me because he's a very good player. Des Curran is very, very good, and he really knows the game. You can just tell he sees when a good pass is or wasn't made. He'd be like, but without imposing himself on you. He's definitely one of my favourites. When he and Pat Finlan are doing co-commentary, I'm like 100%. I want to listen to both of you.
He would comment on the pass.
Yeah, he can just see a game. Like, he was a good footballer.
Oh, sorry, are you on about commentary now, or are you on about five-a-side?
No, he wouldn't comment on the pass in five-a-side. No, when he's commentating, ooh, great ball, Des. Like, I don't think he did that. Conor Morris is a very good player as well.
I've never played with. I don't think I've played with Conor, but I've heard different stories of him being a tidy footballer.
Both very good players. But no, Des would comment on when he's commentating on a game as opposed to like playing a game of Astro, like, you know, and having a running commentary. Which again, I can relate to some players who do that as well. They like comment on their own passes and so on. Like
100%. Someone says in the comments, Marty Whelan, Eurovision, that's passion.
Yeah.
There's a great video on YouTube as well of Snoop Dogg and Kevin Hart commentating on show jumping. Is it show jumping? No, what's the one with the horses dancing? The
horses dancing.
You know when the horses dance.
You in Amsterdam, were you?
How is Amsterdam on that note?
No, but dressage. Sorry, Joseph, thank you. Dressage. They're commentating on a bit of dressage with no experience of it whatsoever, and it's brilliant. It's hilarious, as you can imagine. But things like that, of commentary of a sport that you don't follow, but by watching it, like in snooker, for example, John Virgo is. I mean, he's top notch, and then you get ex-players like Stephen Hendry, really, who adds a lot to it now.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah. Joey and Doe.
Joey and Doe.
He's incredible.
Yeah,
his passion is untouched.
He's a character.
Yeah.
Anyone else? Mike Breen on YouTube. Anyone else get a buzz from saying something about the match before the commentator says it? I remember when I was a kid, that '99 Champions League final. My dad, 1-0 down, saying, "Don't worry, Shane. United always score." 2 seconds later, Tilsley, can Manchester United score? They always score. I thought my dad was
Galway man.
God. Galway man, of course. Yeah.
So Billy Bowie would take great pride in getting there first. I mean, like, sure, I could do that, Chad.
Yeah, you have to get it right. We've gone a long time.
Well, I have a lovely read there for you.
Go on.
No, I have a lovely read.
You have the read ready to go. You're moving me on. We just keep talking about this till 10 o'clock this morning. OTB AM brought to you with Gillette in association with Movember. Effortless shave, magnificent mow. You can sign up or donate now at Movember.com at almost 3 minutes past 8. Here's what's coming up on the show today. So we'll have the sports pages now in just a moment. We have Martin Lipton coming up very shortly as well to reflect on Spurs beating Marseille last night and qualifying top from Group D into the UEFA Champions League knockout stages. Stephen Kisbey-Green, our own SKG, will be in at around 25 past 8 to look ahead to the South African test this weekend. He's of course going to put the argument forward for maybe he's going to downplay South Africa's chances. Will remain to be seen, but the South African 15 is out to play Ireland on Saturday at the Aviva Stadium, so we'll go through that with him. 8:50, Alex Kavanagh, the Shelbourne centre midfielder and star, of course, the weekend she scored a goal for Shels in their win over Wexford Youths to help them win the Women's National League title down at Ferry Carrig. 9:10, Paddy Stapleton will join us in the studio, the Boris Ali man and former Tipperary hurler, 2-time All-Ireland winner, of course. He's written a couple of children's books in recent years as well, so and one just recently out, so we'll have a chat with him about that and a few other bits going on in the hurling world at the moment. And 9:30, Rudd, bit of rugby, so loads coming up on the show between now and 10 o'clock. But now it is time for the sports pages.
There are so many idiots out there, so many spoofers. There's a lot of horse.
I think he's a total spoofer.
What do you mean a spoofer?
He's just bullshit.
No, Eamon, come on, don't be, no, I'm not,
yes.
No.
Yes, indeed. 4 minutes past 8 on OTB AM on this Wednesday morning, and we'll go through quickly the back pages. I'll start with The Guardian for no reason other than some interesting comments here from Gareth Southgate. Southgate under fire. Manager claims Qatar workers united in wanting World Cup. These comments came in an interview Southgate made with CNN. He's getting a lot of criticism, of course, from human rights groups, including Amnesty International. So his comments essentially, I've been out to Qatar several times and I've met lots of the workers out there, and they're united in certainly one thing. That's that they want the tournament to happen. And they want that because they love football. They want the football to come to Qatar. Seems a bit ridiculous, these comments from Southgate. I mean, I know they're probably one sentence in a slightly longer interview at CNN, but Amnesty International warning that although many migrant workers in Qatar are football fans, the majority were more interested in having their rights fully protected and being paid properly than the World Cup itself. Human Rights Watch as well, questioning them, that said families of migrant workers who had died, been injured or cheated of their wages, said they would like to support the World Cup but cannot because their children are starving and their breadwinners died in Qatar. So I'm
pretty sure a lot of the migrant workers in Qatar are from countries where football is nowhere near the main sport.
Interest.
So I doubt even it sounds like, you know, again, another Simpsons reference, but it sounds like Boking accident here, where like the mafia started running the pretzels here. They said something because they had a laser on their head, like, and I don't know why Southgate is saying this, like, and I have a lot of respect for Southgate in general, but like,
and usually on social issues he's quite finger on the pulse.
Maybe he believes this. I don't know. I don't.
Yeah, and maybe it's got so close to the World Cup now, he doesn't want the conversation to be around that constantly in press conferences, that he just wants to take the focus off. Let's focus on
Do you
the
want to watch it, Shane? Like, honestly, I'm like, will I even watch this thing? I mean, I want
to watch it, but I think I'll feel dirty watching it. I don't think I'll feel good about myself watching it.
We're on about the World Cup here, just if anyone just tuned in. It's been a long morning.
Yeah, it has been a long morning.
It's just like
it's one of those things. I think a lot of my mates don't care, like they're just not thinking about that aspect of it.
I don't even know when it starts, like, in my head. I'm like, you know, we're doing previews of it this week in another channel. I'm like, when does it even start? It's not been on my radar at all. Like
20 days is the 19th, 20th, around the end of November. So I mean, I think once it starts, we're all going to kind of get invested, and even if people want to not watch it at the start and boycott it, they'll maybe slowly get into it as it gets interesting. Some people rightly will avoid it, and more power to them. Given the nature of my job, I'll probably watch it, but I certainly won't feel good about it. It's one of those World Cups that you just look. The last World Cup was in Russia as well.
Yeah,
the state of what's happening in Russia since and before even.
You can get into whataboutery, but this is the end as well. If I want to, McSay faces Galway in first game of Mayo Rain. Taylor backs father and spat with Harrington as Serrano rematch moves closer. I think this is modern media as well. It's basically a story based on a social media post, but it is quite interesting. And Sexton, we won't hold back against South Africa. And Martin Breheny goes through his rankings of the football managers as well.
Lovely. RFU increases Six Nations ticket prices as cost source of the Rugby Football Union in England, responding to a 7-figure hike in overheads because of inflation by further increasing ticket prices for the Six Nations this year. So they've opted to add an increase of £5 for England's home fixtures against Scotland and France, and £2 for the Italy game. And too late to alter the autumn internationals, but tickets for the New Zealand game in England costing £179. But they're hoping to bring in more money, and all of this coming in an energy crisis when people can't afford most things, never mind tickets to a football event. The back of the Times across the water as well. Smash and grab after woeful first half. Spurs ride luck to come from behind and win their group. Photo of Pierre-Emile Højbjerg after his 95th minute winner, and he played brilliantly last night for Spurs. Fans may hear VAR decisions. Snippets of conversations between referees and VARs could be made available to fans as football considers ways to improve transparency and explain officiating decisions. A Formula 1 style approach of broadcasting segments of audio after the event could be introduced, and that's certainly one of the best things about Formula 1 coverage on Sky, is you can hear the box coverage between the driver and the team, and then you can hear some of the decision making between. I know that's kind of stopped between the team principals and the FIA as well, but certainly an interesting facet to the coverage. Wolves close on Lopetegui. Wolverhampton Wanderers hopeful of finally appointing Julian Lopetegui as their new head coach after the former Spain manager changed his mind about taking the position. The Irish Sun, of course, the front page, Matt Hancock going into the I'm a Celebrity jungle. The less said about that the better. Just glad I'm not over in the UK dealing with the politics over there at the minute. Pierre, we go. Højbjerg smash and grab for top spot. Tottenham battled into the Champions League last 16 with a last gasp win at Marseille. Band boss Antonio Conte watching from the stands for that one. Big wides cost dear. Jim O'Sullivan reckons Cork exited the All-Ireland the right way. So he's done a couple of interviews in the papers this morning. Laurie is the driver. Laurie Ryan will miss the Munster Ladies Club football final on Sunday as she captains Athlone Town in their first FAI Cup decider. We'll speak to Alex Kavanagh of Shels, who play Athlone in that game at the weekend. The Irish Times sports section and the broadsheets are always fun to try and get open, aren't they? There's plenty of rugby coverage. Gordon Darcy's got his piece in the papers this morning. Now might be the right time to take a punt on Casey. He's all behind the Craig Casey train, is Gordon Darcy, in his front and centre column on the Irish Times today. South Africans spring a surprise as Colby named at fullback for the first time. Interesting enough selection. We'll get into it. Stephen Kisbey-Green a little bit later. Colby, of course, named at fullback his previous 20 tests where he was on the right wing. World champions add some subtle variations to tried and trusted winning formula. What else do we have there? Yeah, but Jermaine O'Sullivan as well. British police sending officers to Qatar to act as buffer for fans. Fears of England fans inadvertently provoking police during the World Cup, causing UK officials to send extra officers to Qatar to deconflict situations. We're used to them, it's alright. We'll send our guys over.
I was looking at the Rangers headline, sorry. It's like Rangers set a new record in misery. It was like whoever the sub was having a bit of
Rangers fans, yeah, they won't be happy with this, but yeah, I think it's officially the worst team because they lost every game and their goal difference of -20 means that in the group stages it was the worst official team in Champions League group stage history. Impressive Spurs show true grit to storm into last 16. And final two here, Irish Daily Mirror. Klopp vows to fight on. Reds leave it late for morale boosting group win as boss Jurgen says he's up for battle to beat struggles and spur of the moment as Londoners win group. Finally from me, the Irish Daily Star. Napoli ever after, tab of the morning. Pool delighted to down Italian aces. Interesting, Jurgen Klopp's agent Mark Kosicke last night moving to dismiss any suggestion Jurgen Klopp could quit Anfield after claims in Germany he has become fatigued by the challenge. Spurs take the long way to the top. I like that. Larry's open to date event switch. Shane Larry welcoming the Irish Open's date change from July to September, even though it won't have a bearing on the 2023 Ryder Cup. Okay, now during the ad break we'll hear Emma Byrne and our own Kathleen McNamee on the latest episode of the Koi Gig podcast as the topic of Megan Campbell's incredible throw-ins were discussed on the back of Manchester City's narrow win over Liverpool at the weekend. The Koi Gig pod on OTB Sports in association with Cadbury FC, official snack partner to the Republic of Ireland's women's national team. Back after the break as Martin Lipton reflects on Tottenham winning their Champions League group in the most dramatic fashion last night against Marseille.
OTB AM. This is OTB Sports Radio.
OTB GAA.
Burns was on another planet this year, boys. Like, just ridiculous what he was doing. Like, in the first half of the All-Ireland final this year, Owen Murphy put a puck out down. Burns puts the claw up and puts it back over the bar. Like, you know, Kilkenny are gone from being in the attack to, you know...
It's negative.
Yeah, basically, yeah. And so quickly.
Subscribe to the OTB GAA podcast feed wherever you get your podcasts.
And of course Megan Campbell's throw-in is just unbelievable. I'm laughing because I was listening to a conversation that the City girls were having and they were just going on about this throw-in and I was like, yeah, that's our weapon in the World Cup. But yeah,
I mean that they are talking about it because we did say that like this season, how would teams react to it or how would teams feel about it?
Yeah, I mean I still don't. Well, I think they know now, but they didn't know a month ago about the Megan Campbell throw because nobody was talking about it. And also, she wasn't really getting her game, which I thought was crazy. She didn't play 2 weeks ago. We were talking about this. I was like, you have to have Megan Campbell on the pitch just for her throws. Like, and you seen she's starting, and they're so dangerous. But Liverpool had their chances. I mean, we talk about City, you know, winning, and if you hadn't seen the game you probably thought it was an easy win. It wasn't. It was really difficult.
It was difficult for them, you
know. And Roberts had a great chance at the end, was cleared off the line, and it was like nail biting stuff for City. So no easy win, a good 3 points for them. And I think Gareth Taylor was he said he was really, really happy with the 3 points.
OTB Sports in your pocket. Listen to OTB Sports Radio 24/7. The OTB Sports app. Available to download now from your app store.
OTB AM. With Gillette. In association with Movember. Effortless shave. Magnificent Mo.
Yeah, welcome back to OTB AM on this Wednesday morning, 14 minutes past 8. Time to reflect on Spurs' win over Marseille last night, clinching that top spot in Champions League Group D. Delighted to say Martin Lipton, the chief sports reporter with The Sun, is on the line with us this morning. Morning, Martin, how are things?
Okay, thanks, yeah, very good.
You're happy enough? I mean, the first half was fairly poor from a Spurs perspective, but the reality is it's a results-based business and you got the job done.
Yeah, I mean, they won, they didn't play well. Have we seen that once or twice? Yes, we have. It's been a story of the campaign thus far. Really, they're still to play. I would say 80% of what they're capable, let alone 100%, and yet they are grinding out results. And yesterday was a case in point. Awful first half. It was only when they conceded a goal that they decided to try and score. And then second half, once they got back on terms, a little bit shaky at times. Kolasinac is a great chance, but Tottenham had the better opportunities.
I guess when you consider, like, at half-time, you felt Spurs were going to have to do a lot, and the table at half-time read Sporting first, Marseille second, Spurs in third, and Frankfurt in fourth. Hard to believe then that those bottom two teams ended up being the two that progressed to the last 16. But I mean, was it the switch to 3-5-2 that kind of changed things up for Spurs and got them into the game a little bit more? Because when Heung-min Son went off, you're thinking, this is, and made a tough task even tougher, because you've Richarlison out, you've Kulusevski out. So the fact that they managed to do it in those circumstances is quite even more impressive, Martin.
Well, I think the key was they actually played 20 yards higher up the pitch.
Right, yeah.
They were just sitting off and letting Marseille play in front of them, which is always a dangerous game, particularly when you've got Tottenham's defence. And lo and behold, they switched off for a goal from a corner, which they were still moaning about the corner, and justifiably so, but that's what happens in football. You've got to take decisions and react to them. Second half, they were pressing the ball properly, they were playing higher up the pitch. The extra body in midfield allowed that, but they were setting traps for Marseille, which they weren't in the first half, and they were winning the ball back in positions where they could hurt them.
It was interesting you brought off Sessegnon at half time, because Sessegnon had been involved obviously in the corner, and I don't know, he could have been one of I guess 5 or 6 candidates, Martin, at half time. They were that insipid.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't play well, but none of them did first half, did they? Let's be brutally honest about it. They were lucky to still be in the game. It could have been all over. They could have been 2 or 3 down, because they were very, very poor. Sessegnon started at right back, was switched to left back, didn't seem to know where he was. Sometimes you just need to do a bit of shock therapy, don't you, in a team, to change things up, and that's what happened. And it definitely improved the way they play. For all the stick that Emerson gets, it's mainly about his delivery. It's not about his defending in terms of 1 against 1. I think he always falls asleep at the back post, as we saw on Saturday at Bournemouth, and again last night for Kolasinac. But he actually gives the squad the team a bit more definition, because he does know the position.
The issue there of Spurs going behind again, Martin, and we spoke about this yesterday with Gareth Roberts talking about Liverpool as well, and it's an issue they've been facing all season. But and you saw it with Tottenham at the weekend against Bournemouth as well. I mean, look, they're third in the table in the Premier League. They've topped their Champions League group, so all is well in that regard. But this trend of going behind in games and taking that concession to wake themselves up isn't a sign of champions, and it's something they're going to have to address.
It isn't, but I think it's 5 on the spin now. They've conceded the first goal in all competitions. That's too many. The last time they didn't was Everton at home. So you're right. It is becoming something of an issue. They've managed to keep on digging themselves out of it a lot of the time. The last 3 matches, draw against Sporting when they should have won the match. They were much better second half. Bournemouth, when the last 20 minutes they turned it round, and again last night. You can't keep on walking on a high wire. You're going to fall off, aren't you? I mean, it's as simple as that. It's impossible to consistently pull off escape acts. So I think there is a recognition. The other thing is, it's pretty clear that Conte's basically told them to play with the handbrake on this half of the season. He wants to get through to the World Cup without too much damage. Well, if they can pick up 4 points, 2 points even from the next 2 league games, then that would have been achieved. They'll be in the top 4 or 5, within touching distance of where they want to be. They are in Europe, still in the Champions League. That will be job done as far as Conte is concerned. You
think? I mean, I've heard that before. You think that actually is the case? It does look like that might be the case when you look at the way they're playing, and it is very, very constrained, particularly in the first half, and they're kind of trying to do enough, and they're in a good position in the league.
Yeah, I mean, whether it was accident or design, it appears to be the way they play. I mean, it's interesting listening to the players yesterday. They were admitting that they were playing too deep and standing off, and you do wonder, well, why? Why did you do that?
Like the second half, Martin, it was literally like it was like as if, okay, let's act shit in the first half and let's act like we can play in the second half. It was so different. It was like, this can't be by accident.
You would think not. There has to be something in it. It's about, sometimes it's a sort of rope-a-dope tactic, isn't it? You let them punch themselves out and then strike, and we've seen teams do that in the past. But you tend to do that if you've got a solid defence, and a team that's conceded 16 goals in the Premier League so far has not got a solid defence by its very nature when they've only played 12 matches. So it's hard to see the justification for the faith in that regard in them defensively. But Conte knows a lot more than I do, and a lot better than I do. I think he genuinely is trying to get through this first half of the season. I think there will be significant reinforcement in January as well. They need 2 or 3 better players in various positions, and I think that will be critical to determine where they finish. Last season's January signings were critical. In Kulusevski, who's much missed at the moment, and Bentancur, they were the big reason for them coming in the top 4. Also, Son is still not playing as well as he can, and obviously he got injured yesterday. I think we'll find that he wasn't concussed, even though he was concussed, because if he was concussed, he couldn't play on Sunday, so therefore he wasn't concussed, even though he was concussed, if that makes some sort of sense, because that's what happens in football. There's a lot more to come. There's no doubt about that, but there needs to be as well.
Some of the positive performers then last night, Martin. I mean, you look at Clement Longley, one of the unlikely scorers, I guess, last night when you looked at it from the outset. But and maybe it's because he's a Frenchman and wanted to perform against Marseille in the Velodrome. But he played really, really well, and even not just in terms of the goal, but the interceptions he had at the back as well. Someone like Pierre-Emile Højbjerg was brilliant. And you look at Denmark's World Cup and you're thinking, if he can play like that, I mean, they could do anything in the World Cup. So some very good standout performers, especially in the second half.
Yeah, I mean, Højbjerg's been Tottenham's best player this season, without a doubt for me. He's been the most consistent, the most impressive. He's added goals to his game, which he didn't really have. He had 1 or 2 a season before, and he's got more than that already. That was a belting finish last night. It was actually harder than the one he hit the bar with, I think. But he keeps on making those runs and keeps on trying. I think that's really important. Longley is finding his feet. He's been there 3 months now. One of the reasons they brought him in was his experience, and also because he was available. He wasn't first choice, second choice, or third choice for that role of left-sided centre-half, but he was available. They've got him in on loan. I would be surprised still if they turn it into a permanent deal, but you never know. If he keeps on performing, then that may change. But yeah, the pair of them played well. I think Lloris made the saves he had to make last night. Even his distribution was typically Llorisian, shall we say. Dyer had a wobbly period, but when it mattered, he came strong. Bentancur drove them forward second half. Kane was basically a one-man attack and was occupying defenders, and when it really mattered, his run led to the winning goal.
You got to have sympathy for Conte and other managers as well, Martin, haven't you? Because they're throwing this like almost inhumane schedule where, and if Spurs collapse in the second half of the season, we'll all be like calling for his head. Where, he's I'm sure Jurgen Klopp seemed to be compelled to play a very good team last night purely because they needed a win, which is completely counterintuitive for players that probably need a break. And I wouldn't want to be a manager, put it that way.
It is difficult. They're all having to balance things they've never had to balance before. And it does make things tricky. And I think you can look across Europe, a lot of teams are not performing to the highest level. Also, we've got the situation, I think, for the next 2 weekends, a lot of players will be wary about getting injured. They won't want to, so they won't be completely committed because they want to play in the World Cup. And I think all of these factors are completely unusual and alien. It's hard enough in a regular season with the amount of games, but compressing the Champions League into an 8-week period, which has been done this season, as opposed to the 12 weeks it's normally played over. The extra, then we've had in this country, the extra chaos that's been caused by the aftermath of the Queen's death. So no one quite knows when matches were being played, and all these sort of things have added to the chaos. And you've got this World Cup and a 6-week break. And how do you look after players? A, the ones who aren't going to the World Cup, and B, the ones who are going to the World Cup, because unlike the rest of Europe, which waits until January and sometimes quite deep into January before restarting, in England, we're kicking off again all these League Cup matches on the Tuesday after the World Cup final and a Premier League fixture list on Boxing Day. I mean, you could argue that it's utterly bizarre and bonkers, but that's the nature of the beast.
It is, yeah. And you hear about Conte's training sessions. It must be really difficult for him. How do you go into pre-season and get this right and talk to your experts and S&C guys? And I mean, how do you plan for this? Is there even a precedent for the madness that this entails?
No, it's completely unprecedented. No one will know how to deal with it properly until they've been through it, and then they'll hope to never have to deal with it again. Although I start to suspect that 2030 may prove that you can have 2 Winter World Cups inside a decade. We will see. But you're right, and it's for every manager. It's particularly those with the vast number of players who are going to go to Qatar for the World Cup. They have even trickier tasks than the ones further down the league who've maybe got 2 or 3, a handful of players going. But everyone's got to sort out how they work it out. Do they do a full second pre-season? Do they give them 2 weeks off and then a gentle week and then a week of hard training? It's not clear. No one really knows what the answer is. And you'll only be able to say for certain when you've gone through it. At least you'll know then what works and what doesn't work, because it is a step into the unknown for everybody.
You mentioned Hugo Lloris there a minute ago, Martin, and I think last night he got a tasty reception from the Marseille fans. It was his first time back since he was there with Lyon 10 years ago. And I mean, he's been under fire for some criticism recently. I know the first goal they conceded against Newcastle, for example, a couple of mistakes against Arsenal for Gabriel Jesus. So he certainly had his fair share of criticism. Played quite well last night, but has he answered questions over the criticism he's got since the start of the season? I know Fraser Forster's waiting in the wings, but I mean, there are still probably some questions among Spurs fans as to Hugo Lloris and his form.
Yeah, look, I think that Lloris is still a pretty good shot stopper. Always has been. Likewise, distribution has never been his strong point. You wouldn't want him working in a parcel office, would you? Because you'd never get anything delivered. But he does make a lot of big saves. And the great thing about all good goalkeepers, particularly those of experience, is they don't worry about making mistakes. They think mistakes are an occupational hazard and they don't dwell on them, whereas younger goalkeepers tend to. Now, I think you could say that Lloris has made a few, but stats-wise, that his stats in terms of expected goals against and goals you can see, they stack up pretty highly still. He is capable of making big saves, and he's a big character within the dressing room. The other players like him a lot. And whilst the fans may not be completely convinced and may wonder if it's time after it's a decade now, that maybe it's time to think about replacing him, that isn't the biggest concern at Tottenham by a long way. There's others who I'd get in and change first before I think about Lloris. I think he may have one more season at Tottenham. I thought he might have gone a year or two ago, actually, but now he's here again. I think he might do one more year. If they could get someone in who's sort of 27, 28, right experience to do the next 10 years, then maybe you think about it. But you don't change for the sake of changing. And I mean, Forster's gone there knowing he's second choice. He doesn't think he's first choice. He's not going to try and, his first match will now, I think, be next week against Forest in the League Cup, and we're into the middle of November by then.
You mentioned that there are other areas of the pitch that maybe they could start looking at improving first. Are there any standout players that they've been either linked with or that have maybe impressed you during the Champions League group stages or otherwise that you think, right, there's a shoe-in for Tottenham? Yeah,
look, I mean, I think the real interest is whether he does pursue Maddison. Because I think the one thing you look at Tottenham and anyone can say they lack is a real creative midfielder, someone who can thread the needle, and someone who can take free kicks as well. Because whilst they're scoring a lot of goals from set pieces, direct free kicks haven't been a threat for quite a long time. Actually, Kane must be unbelievable in training because he takes them always, and they never come close to the net in the match. But there you go. I think they also they could do with and they got 3 right wing backs on the books, and he obviously has doubts about all of them for different reasons. And I still think they could do with a powerful centre half. They've looked at Bastoni and others, and none of them have actually happened yet. Let's just see where it goes.
Huge game on Sunday for Tottenham, Martin, and for Liverpool. I mean, it's taken on quite a bit of significance, this match as well now. 4:30 on Sunday, live commentary here and Off the Ball as well. But I mean, when you look at the table, Spurs, so 5 points off Arsenal's lead with a game more played. Liverpool back in 9th. I mean, both teams need a win. I don't know who needs to win more, potentially Liverpool, but I mean, it's going to be a cracker.
Look, if Spurs win, it would be a huge game because it's the first big match they've won this season. Liverpool, if Liverpool lose, they're 13 points behind Tottenham. More importantly, they're so far behind Arsenal, they might as well give up. Do the Liverpool players, how motivated are they for the rest of the season if they're playing for 4th? because that's what they will be doing if they lose. So I think it's a bigger game in many respects for Liverpool, because they can't afford to. They need to win. Spurs would want to win. Liverpool need to win, because if Liverpool lose, their season has been, in terms of winning something domestic in the Premier League, is gone, because they're not going to get that back. So it's huge. But Tottenham haven't played well against the big teams. They played them all away, which I think is a factor. If you look so far, only 2 games amongst the big 6 have not been won by the home team, and they both involved Chelsea at home to Spurs and United. All the other games have been won by the home side, and Spurs have gone away to Chelsea, Arsenal and United, but in all 3 games they were awful. So they need to put in a performance as well.
Yeah, we watched that game with interest on Sunday. Martin, great stuff as always. Thanks a million this morning.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Lovely stuff. Martin Lipton there, Chief Sports Reporter with The Sun, at 8:30 on this Wednesday morning. OTB AM, brought to you with Gillette in association with Movember. Effortless shave, magnificent mo. You can sign up or donate now at movember.com. Right, turning our attention to rugby. Ireland's huge match with South Africa this Saturday. Who better to do that with than OTB's own resident Springbok, Stephen Kisbey-Green. Stephen, very good morning.
Morning, Jay. Morning, Johnny.
No jersey clash.
I was just going to say, I was expecting the jersey this morning.
Nah, not today. Got to be
shithousery from you.
Got to be nice and pristine for the weekend when I'm in the stands.
Fair. Speaking of the jerseys, what did you make of the jersey clash is ridiculous. I know we were talking earlier this morning. I know the away team gets to wear their choice, is it?
Yeah, the Irish 2 away jerseys are basically similar.
Surely we're allowed to wear the green, Stephen.
Well, so the way rugby works is the home team wears the alternate kit. Like, it goes into the history of the fact that oftentimes a travelling team probably wouldn't have had their away kit with them because of various reasons. So the team that has access to all of their kits at their home would be able to swap. But yeah, it makes absolutely zero sense for the only country that Ireland play that have a kit clash to be South Africa, and they make the jersey almost identical in colour to the South Africans.
It's one of those things where we're talking about it now, but anyone who sees the papers or listens or hears the reports on the jersey clash is going to be like, he's going to know about it in advance, but there's going to be a whole army of people just tuning into the match on the weekend going, what's going on here? Like, both in the stadium and on TV, it's going to be balls.
I think the argument that the kit designers probably have is that South Africa never have a kit clash with the All Blacks, and they wear all black. But the problem is the All Blacks is jet black. The Springboks is that dark green with the white shorts. The Irish away kit or alternate kit is a almost off black type green with like a green stripe, and it looks so similar in hue to the dark green of the Springboks. Granted, by the looks of things, they're going to be wearing dark shorts, so you can differentiate the two by the colour of the Springboks shorts. But it's honestly the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen in my life. We saw it 5 years ago when South Africa came to Dublin. The exact same thing happened. There was outcry from more people in the stands, but they couldn't see who was who. Add to that, it was dark and miserable, as it's supposed to be on Saturday. It's a perfect combination of what is wrong with the commercialisation of rugby jerseys and jerseys in general. They designed a hideous kit to be sold because it's different to their home kit, and they didn't take into account any of the actual factors that go into an actual alternate kit. Mick said it last night on air. Ireland would be better off wearing their home kit, and if you actually look at the 2 jerseys side by side, 100%. The Irish home jersey is lighter and different entirely to the Springboks home jersey. You can legitimately wear both teams' home jerseys, and although they're both green, so the referee might have to come up with a different, like we would say green or gold, for example, roll away. Aside from that, the referee having a bit of a struggle remembering which side he's declared as green, it makes no sense for them not to wear the home jerseys.
It's bizarre.
Isn't it bizarre?
It's not like this 2-ball game or whatever. You see the women's team wearing the orange in Scotland, and how iconic that jersey's gotten, and that's lovely to see that we have our memories of like the orange in Macedonia, not so much, but I just thought this was like, how could this happen? Like,
well, the scary thing is the Springboks are so big that them running at you is scary enough, but if you don't see them coming because of the jerseys, that just adds to it.
I mean, that might be a sly tactic on the Irish part. So maybe the Springboks will get confused. They don't know. They don't know which is their teammate, so they'll just pass randomly, and then hopefully they'll get an interception. maybe that's how they're doing it. But it's.
So what about socks and shorts and all that? How is that going to clash?
As far as I know, I haven't seen we've only seen from the knees up of the away kit, or the alternate kit. Sorry, as I say. So it's black shorts, a off green black top, and I think probably a black sock. That would make sense with the rest of it. It could be this traditional home green sock, which again would make zero sense. But of course, who cares about what actually looks good as long as you sell jerseys?
This is it.
Yeah, and obviously the Springboks will be wearing their green and gold with the white shorts and then the green and gold socks. Unless they pull a late change and actually wear white, which I think is their current away kit. Unless it's that god-awful red orangey thing that they wore 4 years ago. I actually can't remember the last time I've seen the Springboks playing an alternate jersey. The only time it was that god-awful orangey thing in Mbombela Stadium.
Stephen, the Springboks named their 23 yesterday. This back three, talk to us about this South African back three, because it's terrifying on paper. Like where do you want to start it? It's Cheslin Kolbe starting a fullback for the first time. It's quite interesting as well. So a few different strands to this team that stood out. Yeah, I would argue this is probably the most terrifyingly deadly looking back three that an international team can put out. I'm not saying that they're the best, because that's too arrogant, but like just in terms of the fear factor that they've got on their speed, their agility, their counter-attacking ability, their ability under the high ball, it is dynamic. And just to say the words dynamic of a Springbok back three is kind of like oxymoronic, but Cheslin Kolbe is one of the hottest steppers in the world. This has been widely known since 2018 or 2019 when he broke Owen Farrell's ankles. But now you've got Kolbe 2.0 and Kurtley Arendse on the wing. Literally, his career path has followed identically to Kolbe. He's just 3 years behind. So maybe in the next 2 years he'll be going over to France. But so you got those two brilliant hot steppers, and the pace that they've got and the ability they've got to get around the outside, and then you've got Makazole Mapimpi, who's one of the most prolific finishers at the moment. He's got speed to burn, and there's basically it's a matter of how much ball time, how much time with ball in hand they get. Now there is a bit of a weakness in a way in the fact that Kolbe and Arendse are both on the short side. So against a box kick, for example, or a deeper kick that's a contestable in the air, you might favour the taller man, theoretically Gary Ringrose, or Mac Hansen is not too much taller than the two of them, but he probably jumps a little bit higher than maybe Arendse. I don't know about Kolbe, but he can probably get above Arendse. So if the Irish look to exploit the kicking game that way, there could be a bit of a weakness there. But what I do like is the fact that Kolbe has never started a test match at 15, but he's been playing 15 in France and playing a bit of 10. He's basically been moved all over the backline except for the centres. And what he brings to the South African, granted it's an untested system, but what he brings to the South African system is a second receiver role that we haven't had for a while, and that's one that he's very similar to Damien Willemse in the way that he can attack the line, he can exploit that space, and he can hit the shoulder, but he's also got that bit of a sort of sleight of hand, an out the back sort of pass. You don't know what he's going to do when he's got ball in hand, and for a second receiver to have that in South Africa without any kicking game. Now, I don't think Kolbe has too much of a kicking game. He can probably chip and chase, and he can probably put a grubber in, but I wouldn't trust him to put a cross kick over to Mapimpi or put an up and under up. So having the only other fly-off option being Kolbe for this weekend, unless you really wanted to put Willie Leroux in there, not being a dynamic attacking kicker of the ball is interesting, and sort of shows that whilst South Africa are saying that they're going to be playing their traditional Bok rugby, it probably won't be as
as everyone over here says, boring as you might actually imagine.
Like Curtly Arnsa, who you mentioned, the pace of him in particular when you watch the Bulls is standout. And is that the thinking then? So Colby, as you said, like his previous 20 caps were on the wing. So to get him into fullback for the first time, is that just to make way for someone like Curtly Arnsa in the team as well?
Potentially, it could more. I think it's more the fact of trying to make way for Colby at the moment.
Right. Yeah.
You can't. I mean, unless Arnsa gets banned again for a very stupid tackle that he made, then with a rightful ban, you can't really shoehorn him out of the squad in the form that he's in at the moment. And Willie Leroux adds a bit more versatility. And I know I've just ranted and raved about Colby's versatility, but it's a different type of versatility to what Leroux has. Leroux has a little bit more experience. He's a little bit more level-headed in a way.
Yeah.
So putting him on the bench basically allows the South Africans to go full-on counter-attack and full-on structured play in the first half, with Leroux being able to exploit a bit of tired bodies in the second half wherever he comes on. And because he's got the most experience lining up as the second receiver for South Africa behind Pollard, he's got that ability to play the more structured and more South African style of play in the second half when you might need him to do that. So probably it's partially because you want Curtly Arnsa in the starting 15, but then you've also got the ability of Colby just sort of. He'll have more time on the ball at fullback, I think. He'll be brought into the attack line a lot more often, because Jesse Creel, for all his good attributes, oftentimes he won't get the ball out to the wings and he'll close the space by running laterally. And you don't want to do that when you've got Colby outside you. You'd rather let Colby be the second receiver, and then he offloads to Creel in space.
What about this massive pack, South African pack, and the bomb squad? I mean, huge, and that's an area that the Irish team will have targeted in training, no doubt, and tried to work out ways of manipulating and getting one over, but that's not easily done.
How much can you do? Yeah.
I mean, what do you do?
I mean, the easiest way to do it, and Rory O'Connor was talking about it last night, is try and move them around. But the problem is, South Africa are so dominant at the breakdown. If they don't get over the ball, they slow you down. So Ireland will try as much as they can to run South Africa ragged, but it's the problem is trying to get that quick ball. Like going up against Eben Etzebeth, Lud Diache and Pieter-Steph du Toit, and then you've got Franco Mostert on the bench. It's just that second row is massive and physical and dominant. I don't see how Ireland have the physicality to match them. But now the problem is you can't. Like no team in World Rugby realistically has the physicality to match the Springboks. Maybe France on their day if they're fully fit, but the French 23 has never been fully fit in the past 3 years. So like there's always been chopping and changing. You've never had the best team on the park. With the best team on the park, maybe France can match them. England just below par. But the Irish, what they need to do, what I would say they would need to do is try and get du Toit, Etzebeth and Diache in particular out of the breakdown as much as possible by forcing no breakdown. So basically recycling the ball so quickly with pop passes, offloads, and basically do not create a ruck situation. And then on the opposite side of the ball, when you've got the likes of Diache, Etzebeth, Visa carrying into you, it's gang tackles, it's allowing Tadhg, if he's able to play, don't know if he's fit enough at the moment, but if he's able to play, allowing Tadhg to get over the ball and turn over the possession. Effectively, you want to starve the Springboks of possession in that first 40 minutes, because if they do have the ball, they will pummel the Irish into submission, and then in the second half, they'll just take over.
We all remember the famous/infamous quotes from Jake White before the 2004 November Internationals, where he said he wouldn't pick one Irish player in the South African team, and Ireland went and beat them then 3 days later. It's all been a bit more friendly on this occasion. Stephen, certainly in the press conferences, Nina Burr has been full of praise for Johnny Sexton and saying, at 37 he's this and that, and he's one of the best players, and he's like a quarterback and all this. How do the South Africans really feel about Ireland at the minute?
I said on Friday it's a healthy respect, and it's legitimately that. South Africa viewed this as the match of the series. It's the I mean, South Africa have arguably well, maybe not arguably, factually, the most difficult November series of the Southern Hemisphere teams, playing world number 1, world number 2, get a quote-unquote rest week where they can be a little bit more experimental against Italy, and then they're playing England in a out-of-test window match. So basically, quite a few of these French and English-based South Africans are not able to play. So basically, South Africa are coming in hoping they can get 3 wins out of 4, but if they get 2, it's actually probably a successful window. They want to win on Saturday, but I don't think they think it's a guaranteed win. I mean, look what happened when they came here 5 years ago. It was abysmal.
We remember, yeah.
I mean, granted, this South African side and that South African side are like chalk and cheese. But no, it's legitimately, I think South Africa view this as the biggest match of their series. They think that personally, I think that if South Africa win well, it's not so much winning, but it's winning well, and it's the manner of the win that South Africa need to get right. They'll be very confident moving into the World Cup next year. I'm not saying that they're going to win it off the back of whatever happens this November. I'm not saying they'll be favourites off the back of whatever happens this November. But in the camp, if they can do to Ireland what Ireland did to South Africa 5 years ago, they'll be floating on cloud 9, and it all really depends on what happens then in France a week later to see how they see whether or not they view this tour as a success.
Yeah, be interesting to see who shows the cards as well ahead of the World Cup next year in terms of shadowboxing or not, or going all out. Stephen, finally, predictions. Be honest, come on. You can hurt us if you want to.
Nobody throw beers at me in the stand if you spot me. I think South Africa probably going to win it by about 6 points, I'd say. I'm not going to give a score, but I'll give a margin. I think it's probably 6 points. I don't think Willemse will have the accuracy off the tee, but I think they might be able to get the win on tries.
Fair play, Stephen. Thanks, many as always. We have one of the comments in from Danger Dave. Hate rugby, but love listening to this South African. So that's a nice compliment. Stephen Kisbey-Green, thank you as always.
So that
is a bit of the build-up, Johnny, for Saturday.
I'm just trying to see what the actual line is. It's probably not far off that, and I'm obviously a floating voter. I was minded to see this Ireland are world number 1, so how warranted is that? And what will the atmosphere be like, actually? Because I've spoken about this before. I think it'll be excellent on Saturday. The Six Nations games I've been at were so underwhelming. I was like, it was almost like just like a bunch of day trippers who just wanted to go on the beer, and that's well and good. And I'm sure I had a couple of beers this game, and I was like, where's your pride? To quote Kieran Fitzgerald in the old Lansdowne Road, where the place would be like, Marseille last night. It was crap, and maybe Ireland were just dominant in the games. I don't think that'll happen on Saturday. I think maybe Saturday will be a bit like the old Lansdowne, but like Jerry Thornley has spoken about it in the Irish Times, and the issue of the atmosphere of these games. Some crowd issues in terms of the attendance has been down in rugby as well in Ireland, so maybe it'll be a chance for rugby fans to show that they can make noise as well.
The fans won't be able to tell who scored the try because the jerseys will be that similar. So there'll be that issue.
That's a joke.
That's madness. Cal Milani, good morning.
Morning, lads. How's it going?
This jersey clash is a bit ridiculous, isn't it?
Yeah,
in the rugby?
I'm just saying, Ireland had a really nice white shirt, if memory serves.
Just wear the white shirt.
You can't really go wrong with white, in terms of a jersey design.
It's always been a thing in Gaelic where both teams would wear their alternative, wasn't that day? So it's like you've 3 different types: rugby, soccer and Gaelic.
I know there's commercial things here where we have to wear this jersey because we have to sell this jersey for Christmas and blah blah blah.
So a away jersey or an alternate jersey shouldn't be altogether similar to the home jersey for obvious reasons. You will probably play South Africa and Australia at some stage. Why would you?
Exasperation, Johnny. Exasperation with these decisions that are made by top brass. But anyway, it's just one of those things. As long as we win the game, who cares what jersey we're in?
Yeah,
maybe it'll help.
The jersey will become famous then. Watching any of the Champions League last night, Carl?
Yeah, keeping an eye on it. Good result for Liverpool. Obviously, a couple of late goals, and that was a big result for Spurs, wasn't it? To grind it out there with Conte in the stands and stuff like that. This season I tipped Spurs at the start of the season to really make an impact, and I guess on the face of it, they have. They're third in the league and they're through to the last 16 in the Champions League, but the manner of their performances wouldn't suggest that they're really in that top tier of clubs where they can challenge Manchester City right now.
I would have a lot of faith in Conte to really
bring them on if he does stay. The question is whether he will stay and whether he will get the backing in the transfer market to really get the investment that he needs. And they've got another big game on Sunday against Liverpool.
So when you look at the teams that are now through to the last 16 in the Champions League, so you've got Napoli, Liverpool, Porto, Club Brugge, Bayern Munich, Inter Milan, Spurs, Eintracht Frankfurt, Chelsea, Real Madrid, Man City, Borussia Dortmund, PSG and Benfica, and then to join them tonight either AC Milan or RB Salzburg, and either RB Leipzig or Shakhtar Donetsk. Like Liverpool, it's hard to know what to make of last night, ending a 21-game unbeaten run for Napoli. Darwin Nunez is chaos. I mean, look, he scored the tap-in goal last night, and his goals per minutes ratio is actually really good. But it's hard to know what to make of him. He's like I think the lads on CBS Sports last night, like Carragher compared him to Fernando Torres and said, look, Torres, when he was playing on that Liverpool team, we knew he could score goals, we knew he was good, but he'd give the ball away every now and again and a little bit unpredictable. There is that little bit about Torres or someone like that about Darwin Nunez. It's hard to work him out, isn't it?
I'm not sure he's as polished as
not as polished,
Torres.
definitely not. No,
not yet anyway. But you can definitely see the raw potential there. But what Liverpool really need now is players at the top end of their game that are able to contribute. Like, I mean, Mane's gone. Nunez, just a little bit raw. But I think, talk about the last 16 and stuff like that. Liverpool have the capabilities and the tradition to lift their game for a once-off fixture, and they're going to get a tough draw in the last 16 because they finished second in their group.
That's the thing. And if they were to get knocked out in the last 16, where is the season going then? Because it just literally does become a battle to finish fourth, and that's massively anticlimactic. And then you wonder if the German reports are right that Klopp is a bit fatigued. Maybe he is. That could be very challenging a few months. I've said it a million times just in the last 2 weeks alone. I think managers have an awfully difficult problem here with the amount of games and how do you manage it. And I was surprised that he played so many marquee players last night, because I don't think he did. In fairness, I don't think he had an alternative option, because they are stretched. But really, Liverpool players need to be rested for the Spurs game, which is massive.
Yeah, I guess the positive shoots from Liverpool last night. Konate back in definitely is the man to have alongside Van Dijk.
Yeah.
And Matip's a good player, but when you see Konate, it just adds that little bit of strength.
He's definitely been a loss.
He has.
Maybe Van Dijk has suffered as well as a consequence.
Yeah, Calvin Ramsey, you see coming off the bench last night. He has something as well. Not 100% sure on Curtis Jones. I know Klopp spoke fairly positively last night after the game about him, but he's quite raw as well. But a dangerous player and can do it. It's remarkable to see Liverpool's 16 points in the Premier League from 12 games, 15 points in the Champions League from 6 games. Like, the difference in form.
Yeah.
Maybe it
did include the Napoli away game as well, though, which was probably the most worrying forms in years for Liverpool in some of that first half. And in the league, they've minus goal difference if you take away the Bournemouth game.
Yeah.
Which is bonkers. Absolutely bonkers. This is a team that steamrolls. They still have a lot of issues, I think.
Yeah, I just wonder, this season is going to be so strange with the World Cup. That's nearly a chance to reset for the likes of Liverpool, and we just don't know what sort of an impact the World Cup's going to have on teams post-Christmas. So it's very much up in the air. And then you talk about top four. I mean, you wouldn't say that Chelsea or Spurs or United are shown the sort of form that will suggest that they're guaranteed to be in the top four. So there is still a lot of hope for Liverpool, but I think, as you say, they are fatigued probably, and the World Cup will offer them a chance to reset, including their manager, who has become very prickly in his media dealings. I watched his press conference earlier in the week, and he strikes me as a person that's under a lot of pressure, that's feeling the heat right now.
Yeah. Like, it was his 400th game, I think, last night as well, so it was a bit of a milestone moment for him. But he just, there's something touchy about him that hasn't, maybe it's always been there, we're just noticing it because they're losing games. But
well, I guess naturally he's a winner, so
yeah, he doesn't like losing.
You have to remember, right, when we like years ago, you played your game on a Saturday, right, and you prepared for your Saturday. Now he has to go in day after day after day. You have a game on the Tuesday after playing like late, we'll say, on the Saturday, and it's just like, it mentally must be so draining. And then you're under
scrutiny. Press conference straight into a pre-match press conference.
Exactly. And it's like, I don't know, I'm sure he's on a lot of money and he lives a great life, but this is pressure. It's really tough.
Yeah, not easy.
Mind the players who just have to perform despite the fact that it's inhumane what they're being asked to do.
It's
for this stupid World Cup in December. Like, do you know what I mean?
Yeah, and as soon as Napoli's only over now, automatically the attention turns straight away to the Spurs game at the weekend as well. There's no No rest for the wicked. What else is happening, Cathal, this morning?
Well, Mo Salah equalled Stephen Gerrard's tally of 41 European goals for Liverpool last night in that game in their 2-0 win over Napoli. Spurs advanced from Group D following a 2-1 win away to Marseille. Rangers, by the way, completed their Group A campaign with 6 defeats out of 6, losing 3-1 at home to Ajax, and they have the worst Champions League group record of -20 goal difference after their campaign. Tonight, Celtic conclude their campaign. Hasn't gone well for them either. They'll finish bottom of Group F regardless of their result away to the champions Real Madrid. Erling Haaland missing from Manchester City tonight. They take on Sevilla, and in Group E, Chelsea's campaign concludes at home to Dinamo Zagreb. City and Chelsea both already through. Some news on the Gaelic Games front in terms of provisional fixtures for the Allianz Leagues. All-Ireland champions Limerick will begin their Allianz Hurling League campaign away to Cork in early February. In football, the All-Ireland champions Kerry set to begin their Division 1 campaign away to Donegal at the end of January. Mayo, managed by Kevin McStay, set to play Galway in their first outing on the 28th of January. That's a Saturday evening fixture provisionally at McHale Park, and a provisional list of fixtures has been circulated to counties ahead of the new season. Could be the subject of change, but that is unlikely. I think the other 2 Division 1 football fixtures are Monaghan against Armagh and Roscommon at home to Tyrone. In Camogie, Sean Power appointed as the new manager of Waterford. They reached the semi-final stage last year before losing to Cork in the last 4. Power previously guided the county to All-Ireland success at minor and under-21 level. The Ireland A team to play in All Blacks 15 on Friday will be announced today. Munster second row Tom Ahern misses out there due to a shoulder injury. Mark Allen in action at the snooker Champion of Champions event in Bolton today. He plays Joe Perry, and there's racing at Dundalk where the first goes to post at 2 o'clock.
We were having a debate earlier, Cathal, about commentators in football, and Jonathan Lew's piece in The Guardian.
I read that.
That's when I first heard Cathal, I think.
Well, Cathal is a commentator, so we have to get his take on it. I mean, it's a two-footed tackle from Jonathan Lew on commentators generally. It's like he's basically saying, shut up.
Yeah.
I don't want to hear you. And I went in two-footed on Martin Tyler a little bit earlier. I thought he's lost his pizzazz that he used to have. What's your take on Jonathan Lew's comments, Cathal?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it's very hard to know. I mean, I think a commentator does add, like, for example, my earliest memory of a Republic of Ireland goal is Matt Holland against Cameroon in the World Cup, and I can rhyme off George Hamilton's commentary from that goal.
20 years later.
What was it there?
And that's come out to Holland. 1-1, Matty Holland has put Ireland right back in the match. That's fabulous. They came out reborn. Steve Finnan added more. They played the game in the Cameroon half, and Matt Holland does what he does so well from that kind of range. No chance the goalkeeper, and it's 1 apiece.
Okay, there's something. Okay,
Jesus.
The fact that you remember. So again, you were born somewhat as a commentator, whether you knew it or not that day.
Well, I don't know.
Journalist. I mean, how can you remember that?
I think that could be a little bit off, but I think that's it. But
impressive.
It's probably not off at all.
No,
that's what I remember. So when you're talking about commentators, I think they do add to the key moments in football over the years. I mean, George Hamilton is synonymous with so many big Irish football moments.
He holds his breath. And in fairness, I think with George, you see, the problem as well is, and sorry, I'm interrupting Carver, the problem as well is, say the likes of Tommy Walsh, right?
Yeah.
Tommy Walsh is so good that my fear is that he'll know he's so good that he'll feel under pressure to remain that good, and that'll change him because he'll try that extra bit harder to be that good and overthink it. And commentators, as we were saying earlier, this will be all over YouTube, or it'll be all over social media if you get this right, and that changes you. George Hamilton didn't have that concern in Italia 90. He knew a nation was holding its breath.
I just reading Lou's piece there. Very airy-fairy, some of it, but he's like, there's a bit in The Tempest where Prospero is making a long rambling speech to Miranda when he suddenly blurts out, "Dost thou attend me?" It's addressed to Miranda, but really it's addressed to the audience. Hey, are you listening? This is the commentator's real job these days, to remind us when we need to run back from the kitchen. But we've said that earlier, like Tyler doesn't really do that anymore.
Yeah.
Do you enjoy it?
My experience, I started doing radio commentary first, where obviously you're very descriptive, and then I was doing a bit on Watch LOI, and you watch it back and you're like, no, I'm way too descriptive there. Like, I don't need to.
Do you listen to yourself back?
Well, I had to. I watched some of it back because a guy actually tweeted me and he said, "Are you getting paid by the minute, or by the word rather, because you're saying so much?" So I watched it back and I was like,
"Watch LOI, that's a nominal amount."
Yeah. But obviously I was talking way too much.
You're ex-radio.
But I was talking way too much.
Yeah, you're ex-radio.
And it's like you do watch it back and you're like, well, you know, I could let it breathe there. I could let it breathe there. So it's a very different kind of skill. And I still still a lot to learn about it. But I do take his point that commentators you can rein yourself in sometimes and just let the action play out on the screen. But without a commentator at all, I'm not so sure.
Well, Cathal, if it's any consolation, I think you're brilliant, and you speak the perfect amount.
You're just saying that now.
Just saying it because you're beside me. Cal Maloney, thanks as always this morning. Good stuff. OTB AM brought to you with Gillette in association with Movember. Effortless shave, magnificent mow. You can sign up or donate now at Movember.com. It's just approaching 9 a.m. on this Wednesday morning. After the break, we'll be live in studio with Alex Kavanagh, straight from her latest Women's National League title win with Shelbourne last weekend. Scored a goal as well. First, Dan McDonald was on the show last night talking about Virgil van Dijk's form and attitude this season. Back after this.
To be fair, the Leeds game is an interesting one in that they still created a lot of chances, and Darwin Nunez, for one, should have taken some of them. There was the one where he should have lifted it over the keeper a bit earlier. He went more for power, and Meslier made lots of saves. None of them were world class.
No.
They were doing your job, as a certain pundit might say.
Yeah.
And the other thing which jumped out was a point of attitude. Maybe with different players there are different things going on. With Van Dijk, it's hard to figure out the malaise, but certainly if you think of the Van Dijk that we saw against Manchester City, sliding full length to stop crosses coming in so sharp and on top of everything, and then you think of the Van Dijk, for instance, for the Gomez mistake. Now ultimately it's Gomez's mistake and it's unfortunate Alisson slips, but you just feel like the Van Dijk that we saw against Manchester City was more on his toes, more alive to danger, was just so flat-footed to that moment even happening. And again, it's dreadful from Gomez. I had a glance back at it. He never once looked up at Alisson to see where Alisson was. He was operating entirely on assumption. And so the fault does rest with him, and it's unfortunate Alisson slips. But that Van Dijk moment of just complete flatness.
Yeah.
You know, if he hadn't been so good against City, then you would say, oh, there's something off there. Like physically, or maybe his head isn't right in some way. Well, sorry, I do think it's that his head's not right.
Well, yeah, it must be.
His head's not right.
But I don't know. Like, is the City just that? Like, the great players can elevate themselves through a performance, but it could be something physically that, like, over time, it just catches. That it's what will we see from at the World Cup? He missed the last major tournament because of his injury. With his country. They didn't make the one prior to that. I think that's correct. So, like, he's not necessarily had a great run of major tournaments. Maybe like this is something that's huge around the horizon. Do you lose 1% or a couple of percent? I don't know. Again, you're just like you're asking the question because you're basically talking about a mental equation there, and you kind of wonder, is he one of those players? What I think about his situation though, he is like, he had that period of thinking this guy is like, he's infallible here. Yes. But once he loses that aura, like, does that sort of have an impact on the players around him too? Like, you clearly, like, you have this presence of this reassuring presence who sort of digs people out of problems, or he's their leader, or however you want to phrase it. And if he's just that, you suddenly think, God, he's not the player he was now, or he's more liable to be a mistake now.
Yeah, Dan McDonald there speaking on the show last night. It's 9:02 on this Wednesday morning on OTB. I'm delighted to say the Shelbourne star Alex Kavanagh is in studio with us, fresh from winning the Women's National League title again at the weekend. Morning, Alex. How are you?
Good. How are you all?
Keeping well. Your celebrations, no doubt, ongoing. I know you have the cup final to come this weekend, so they had to be fairly muted. But did you just get a night off to enjoy it?
Yeah, I think we went back to Tolka that night. We had a few drinks.
Great place for a party.
Yeah. Not too much, because obviously we knew we were playing on the Sunday. So we tried to keep it as little as possible.
Is it all
to say, Alex, like, you're basically on the Raz for the week now, and like we're going to be like overcooked on Sunday. We'll be like, we've had a long week.
We're trying to play down the chances as much as we can. Try not to drink too much, because obviously we know Athlone are a good team, so you have to stay ready.
Does it make it all the more special, Alex, when you have the final day coming down the way it was? Like, you had to win, and Wexford were in with a shout, and Athlone were in with a shout of winning the league as well. So when the league has come down to a dramatic final day like that, it must make it all the more special, because it's not an anticlimax of 3 or 4 or 5 games before the season ends where you know you're going to win.
I think like it does put a lot more pressure on you. I don't think it's ever really been like that the last few years. It's always kind of been like, well, maybe last season, but there's always been like a clear winner. But I think it shows that, like, the likes of Athlone and stuff, they're coming in It's kind of making the league a little bit tougher. It's not just the one team or the two team that's just going and winning it, which is nice. I think it makes it a bit more competition.
Have you noticed the quality level of the Women's National League going up in recent years? Like, there's definitely an increased interest level there for sure, amongst fans and TV and TG Carr showing games as well. So has that been replicated on the pitch? Like, do you feel like there's more of a competitive element to it?
Yeah, 100%. I think even like fans wise, there's a lot more fans coming. Like, it's not just obviously the young girls. Like now, our team, like the men's like fans are coming, which is unbelievable. I think, like, to be fair, it's only like our club that's doing that. But like, we're coming out against Wexford, and there's like loads of like men's fans screaming your name and stuff like that, like singing for Shels, and it's just like, it's unbelievable. It's really nice to see though.
I think both have had a bit of that as well. I think that's one of the great things. Like, Go United have now taken over the women's team as well, and I think that you do become part of this wider family, like, and you will get a lot more people at the games.
I think that's a big thing, like for Shels. Like, I think, I'm not sure about Bows, but like I think Shels started off, like the men's come to the game, like there's 2 busloads coming down to our game, which is great to see. Like, it gets you buzzing for it. But yeah, I think it's really good. Like,
that's a community feel thing, because like Damien Duff's team, of course, and there's a lot of interest around Damien Duff and the men's team as well because of who he is. But that's clearly been transferred over to your team as well. But when you're getting that, I mean, 1,000 people down at Ferrycarry Park, it shows that there's that community feel around the club, maybe in Shelburne, that the two teams are almost as one. Yeah,
I think like we had a meeting like a few years ago, and we were saying that we'd like to make it just the one club, because we were called Shelburne Ladies. And then like they said we'd like it to make it one club, so I think that it did bring that like bit of a community around it. But yeah, it's good that like we have that. It's nice to see. Like,
what's it like to have someone like Heather O'Reilly involved as well? I mean, when you've got a World Cup winner in the team as well, like we had Joey Malone in with us there last week talking about the impact she's had in training sessions and influence. That must be quite special to play alongside someone like that.
It's a bit mad. Like, she just fits in like as if she's just one of us. It's mad though, like you wouldn't think like she win a World Cup, like you'd be chatting to her about it and stuff like that. She's just so humble, like you'd speak to her and you wouldn't have a clue, like but it's good, like she's quite sharp, like it's nice to learn things from her.
You've been involved in all 3 of Shelburne's title wins, like 2016 as well. Were you involved?
Yeah.
So what's your own background? Like, was it home farm you started out playing as a youngster?
I started out playing with home farm. I was with the men's team. I was with Tulk Rovers first there from Finglas. I was with them, then I moved to home farm. And then I was with the men's teams, but P-Men put a protest in against me, so I had to join a women's team.
You were too good, basically, they protested?
No, I wouldn't say that.
Why were they protesting then? Because you were like...
What is it,
sorry? Why were they protesting?
Because I was with the men's team on the home farm, the boys' team, and then I was playing with the Shels girls. So they didn't allow that.
Can't do both.
So I had to join Shels girls. I joined them, I think, when I was 9 or 10. So I've been around with Shels, I'd say, for like 12 or 13 years, I think.
And you've been around football your entire life as well. Your dad and your brother are both heavily involved in football?
Yeah, my dad, he was with Pats and Usher and stuff like that. And then my brother, he was with Shamrock Rovers. So I think they got me into it when I was about 4, because my dad was coaching, and then I was training with my brother Keane's team. Like underage and stuff like that, so I was quite involved when I was younger.
Did you fall in love straight away, do you remember? Or?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, I absolutely loved it. Well, I didn't really have a choice, but even at that, like, I absolutely loved it, yeah.
Did playing with the boys help you? Or was it like...
100%, yeah. I think even like I done the football FOSS course when I was a little bit older, but just training with the lads, it's just a different level. You go in, we were training every day in FOSS, and then we come back into my own training. You just feel a lot sharper because they're obviously quicker and fitter. So you get used to that kind of tempo, and then you come back and it's a little bit, you feel a bit more like kind of energetic or sharper in a way. It does help though.
Who would have been your football heroes growing up? Like, I don't know if you'd remember the Shelburne Champions League run and Owen Heary and all them lads, but maybe too young. But I mean, you must have had people you looked up to as a kid who were like, okay, that's the reason I want to be a footballer.
Yeah, in a way. Like on the women's team, I think I love watching Denise. I think she's unbelievable. I think she's very underrated. She's just such a good player. She does a lot. Maybe kind of abroad, men's, I love watching Zinedine Zidane.
Right.
I think he's a great player. I just always watch clips of him. He's very, very good in the likes of Iniesta and stuff like that.
Good judge here.
Well, you're born to be a centre midfielder, obviously, then, if you're looking at Zidane and Denise.
Yeah, maybe.
What what did you make of what have you made of the Vera Pauw, what she's done with this women's team? It's like you talk about the men's supporters in Shelbourne taking an interest in the Shels women's team, but the women's national team now have just taken on this whole new level of interest. Everyone is on board the bandwagon now ahead of the World Cup.
Yeah.
A lot of that down to Vera Pauw, but I mean, it's great to see what has happened with Irish women's football since you even think back to Liberty Hall and the strikes and trying to get the most basic of equality with the men's team.
Yeah.
But now when you look at it, it's just 5 years on, taking on a different dimension.
Yeah, I think it's unbelievable. I think it's a long time coming. Obviously a lot of the girls have put in a lot of work, but I think it's a long time coming that they deserve it. They do obviously put a lot of work into it. I think it has helped a lot of the girls going abroad to England and stuff like that, obviously raise the standard, but I think it's unbelievable what they've done and what they've achieved, and hopefully they go on and do a lot of great things, you know.
I guess that brings us to the next question. How do you stop the drain of talent, or how do you at least, like you mentioned Joy Malone and Noel King's comments after the game the weekend. How do we? I mean, I think there's a lot of, like, you know, the ladies going over to play like Australian football. I think there's definitely comparison. I think there's a League of Ireland men's comparison going down the years as well. There's no easy answer, is there? How do we get this right? I
think it is. I think a lot of it is down to the club. There's a lot of things you can do, but I think, in a way, like, it's gotten a lot better already. I think it's just clubs coming in, there's more interest in it. I think, like, with TG Qatar, like, it's I think that's helped a lot. I don't think they've realised how
yeah.
I think that's brought a lot of support. You'd never really get like 1,000 fans down at the Ferry Carrick, and then obviously like thousands watching on the telly. I think that has helped a lot. I think little things like that does help, because obviously you want to be playing well on telly, so that does bring up the standard at the same time. But I think it does start off at little things, like little basics, maybe the telly, stuff like that. Obviously maybe fundings, like Shels have brought in fundings for us, which is a really good thing. I think that might help players want to go on, or you're getting paid, stuff like that. And hopefully it just progresses over the years. It's going to take a bit of time, obviously, because we started from scratch, but I think it is improving. Hopefully we'll get there.
Does the funding help?
In a way, yeah, it does. It's nice, like, it's better, like, it's better than not getting it. It does help in a way, obviously. Obviously it's not massive, but it does help in a way. Like, it's kind of something. I think a lot of the girls, like, we train 3 nights a week, and then obviously on the Saturday, like, a lot of the girls work, all of us work, so I think it is, like, you do put a lot of time and effort into it. So I think it does, like, help when you get that little bit of added or extra.
For context as well, Alex, like, there are people, like, there are lads who are playing in the first division this season in the League of Ireland, going for promotion, who are essentially on 50 quid a week.
Yeah.
So this is not like, it's not, there's no easy answer to this, like, across the spectrum, because you can't just magically invent money either, you know, so it's not straightforward. I may be wrong here, but I don't know what the answer is.
Well, Noel King, even, I think he's in the papers today talking about the fact that, you know, he's even tried to sign players before, maybe professional or semi-professional players for yourselves, and not allowed to because it's amateur ranks. Does there need to be now a push, do you think, towards making it professional? Obviously done right, as Johnny says, you don't want to be throwing token money to players just to say it's professional, they're paid, but it probably needs to be done in the right way.
Yeah, I think even, like, with that, like, obviously there's a lot of complaints about robbing players and stuff like that. I think that's football at the end of the day. Like, there's clubs that have robbed players on us, we're going to rob players on them, obviously professionally if you can. But I do think if you could make it professional, obviously you do need a lot of things added to it, standard wise and stuff like that. But I think it would be a really good move if we could do that.
Presumably you guys wouldn't be out of pocket, like, there's not an occasion where you're having to pay up to go to matches or diesel, or like, I assume you get helped out to a degree.
With Shels, we would now. Obviously, like, years ago, you'd get nothing realistically. Like obviously when I was younger, like, my dad be dropping me to the games and stuff like that. Like, I'd be travelling to Galway or Wexford or stuff. You don't get that funding, and a lot of clubs still don't. Which is harsh. We're quite lucky with Shels. They have brought us in and they have given us fundings, but I think a lot of the girls in the league, they do put a lot of time and effort into it, and it does cost. Like, you're going to be travelling to games, like, sometimes you mightn't get a bus or whatever. Like, sometimes we couldn't get a bus and you'd have to, like, have your own funding and stuff like that. But I think with a lot of clubs maybe they don't have that, which is quite unfair. But I think with Shels we're quite lucky we have gotten that, so quite happy with that.
Like that TG Carra thing you mentioned, that aspect is so important as well, and I think it's similar with Vera Pauw's team. Like Sky have done a lot in terms of sponsorship, and even now just seeing like players on billboards and on side of buses, like it's something you just never would have seen with the women's team over the years. But now clearly that even the marketing and PR push behind it is dramatically increased.
Yeah, I think that's like I said, like it's a really big thing that they've promoted us. Like we went down, we done a photo shoot in Sligo, I think it was, and just little things like that on the telly. Like no one will know if it's not shown, kind of in a way, because obviously women's football it's not as big. But you're never gonna know if it's not on. Like I'm going to work, I work in a gym, and like to be like, oh, you're playing this weekend. You'd never really know. When I was chatting to one of the girls, Jess, like she works in a bank, and she's saying like people be coming in, oh, you're playing this weekend. You wouldn't get that years ago, but it's kind of nice to see, like, because you work so hard for it. It's nice as a little reward, maybe in a way.
In terms of coaching, like, how good is it at the kids level? Like, because I mean, I would argue like even Irish men's football has been miles behind in terms of young players getting their touch right at a young level. So are the girls getting the opportunities that you would say what you started off at 4?
Yeah.
The Alex Kavanagh of today, who's 4 years of age, what is her choice now, or when can she start? When can she get proper training?
Yeah. I think the coaching side of it is quite big. Like I think if you get a good coach from being young, I think that would be a massive part of it. I think playing with the boys, I think that helped me massively.
Would you encourage or discourage that going forward? Like, would it be good for the boys and the girls if they played together at a very young age, or would it be? Do we need to, segregate?
I think I would encourage. I think it'd be a great thing. Obviously, like I would recommend. Obviously, if there was a girls and a boys team, but sometimes at a young age, a lot of girls won't play football or etc. Like, but I think I definitely recommend going into the boys side of things. I think that like completely brings up your level and makes you a better player. I definitely would recommend it if it was possible. But then like I wanted to continue with the boys, but obviously I wasn't allowed because there was a protest. But I definitely would recommend that, yeah. But I think now it's becoming a big thing, so I think it would be great if we had our own girls side that would bring up that level and have good coaches. But I think that would benefit, yeah.
Do we need under 8 to under 8 level, which is, do you need to segregate at that level? I don't know if you do. You're developing skills here, like you're developing respect as well.
Yeah.
And you're developing where down the line maybe there'll be as many young girls playing as there will be boys. Who knows? And I don't know. You need the coaches.
Yeah, I think it comes down to, like I said, like even promoting. Like maybe young girls are seeing that and telling them like, oh, I want to get into it. And I think the more that do it, the more the level's going to raise, like the better you want to be, kind of in a way. But I do think you're right. Like I think maybe the more it's shown, the better it will be.
I love the story of my my niece and nephew were like they're in the back of the car after the Scotland game, and my brother said to my niece, oh, you must have loved the women beating Scotland. And she was like, oh no, my brother was way more into it. He was loving it, like, and he's mad into football. She's kind of hovering, but like it didn't matter to him. That was the Irish women's team, like,
just football now for everyone.
And it was very good. Like it was like that goal is iconic, like
unbelievable. Alex, you've been great with your time. Listen, I know you scored a lovely header at the weekend as well. Abby Larkin, was it, to cross the ball in for you?
Yeah, Larko whipped it in. I don't think I've ever headed the ball in my life, so I don't know what I was doing.
First time for everything.
Yeah, but it just came in. I don't know what I done, to be honest. I think I just hit it and happily went in.
Fair play. Well, listen,
you're obviously important that they stay as well, like they don't.
Yeah.
Like the Larko and that. Like.
Yeah, I think like obviously Larko, she's in with the seniors. She's still quite young. Like Larko's unbelievable. Yeah. It's really nice to see like young girls going in. But yeah, no, it was a great ball, so thankfully it went in the end.
More of the same this weekend, no doubt.
Yeah.
Listen, thanks a million for coming in, Alex. Best of luck this Sunday as well in the Cup final, Tallaght Stadium. Sunday, Tallaght Stadium, you'll get the Cup final as well, Shelbourne against Athlone Town. OTB AM brought to you this morning with Gillette, as always, in association with Movember. Effortless shave, magnificent mo. You can sign up or donate now at Movember.com. Here's what we've got on OTB Sports Radio coming up today. 1 o'clock, it's OTB Gold, Dr. Harry Edwards. 3 o'clock, the latest Koi Gig pod. We've got from 4 p.m. a retro panel on keeping a level head. 6 p.m. it's OTB Gold with Catherine Switzer. 7 p.m. as always OTB Live with Joe Malloy in the hot seat. They're joined on Wednesday Night Rugby by Keith Wood and Fiona Hayes, while Desi Hutchinson and Tim Vickery will also be on the line. Follow OTB across all our social channels and subscribe to the OTB Podcast Network for all the very best in the latest sports content. After the break, we'll be live in studio with Tipperary's two-time All-Ireland hurling winner Paddy Stapleton to talk about his new children's GA book, Up in the Air. First, though, here's Johnny Sexton speaking ahead of Saturday evening's Springboks clash. Back after these.
And having that tag of number one, I suppose as captain, is it something to be aware of? And maybe it's some of the younger players in that. Is it a pressure? Do you embrace it? What way do you look at it?
Honestly, it's not something that really we talk about much. Like it's not a goal to become number one in the world. That might sound stupid, but in some sports it is, in golf or tennis. But in rugby, the rankings matter once, and it's like 3 years out from a World Cup when they matter, which doesn't make that much sense either. But we don't speak about to be number one in the world. You need to win the World Cup. That's where the goals are. Obviously you want to be the best in Europe. You want to win the Six Nations. So those are our goals. There's nothing to do with being number one, and I don't think many teams read too much into it. I know the other teams have probably referred to us now trying to put pressure on it, but we don't speak about it.
OTB AM on OTB Sports Radio, Ireland's first and only sports radio station.
Sivo going on his own, he gets the try!
The Red 78.
We're both Munster people.
Nobody knows Munster rugby better.
Carver gets over the line, try from Munster!
Available every Wednesday. Don't miss a moment of action. Subscribe to the Rugby channel on the OTB Sports app and turn on your notifications now.
Have you subscribed to the OTB Football Podcast?
You know, no Aston Villa manager has ever left Aston Villa and went on to anything.
I don't know, he went on to be Ireland man. Bit of sideways.
I forgot about that.
Let's not have a go at ourselves there.
Mick, is it? You Aston Villa fans have such notions.
I went through all the managers and I forgot about O'Neill going to Ireland. Well, he got to the Euros, so
yeah, it's a step up.
Subscribe now to the OTB Football Podcast stream wherever you get your podcasts and download the OTB Sports app.
OTB AM with Gillette in association with Movember. Effortless shave, magnificent modes.
Okay, 20 minutes past 9 on this Wednesday morning with myself, Shane Hannon, and Johnny Ward. Delighted to say the Boris Ali man and two-time All-Ireland winner with Tipperary, Paddy Stapleton, is in studio with us this morning. Paddy, how are things?
Not too bad, Shane. How are you?
Keeping well. You've got this book, so Up in the Air, Muckfest. It's a children's book for those of you out there who want to get your hands on it. It's a follow-on to this. So we've got... Now, this is the first question I'm going to ask you.
This is actually another new one.
So it's a different new one, right?
It's
okay.
Different. So anyone could do one book. So I do two.
For anyone interested, I'm going to get that in the middle of the screen. My first hurley and my first hurl. This is a controversial topic, Paddy. Yes. You've decided to go with both. Is it a hurley or a hurl?
Well, it depends where you're from, doesn't it? I could never imagine, play hurl with a hurl. Hurl with a hurl. So it's always hurley in Tipperary. But a lot of the places you get killed if you said it was a hurley. So I had to avoid the controversy, really, because I was even talking to my own mother and she said, well, I wouldn't buy my first hurl. So I'm sure a lot of parents in Ireland wouldn't buy my first hurley.
That's why you went for the two.
That's why I went for the two of them. Yeah, and you know what? Obviously I'm doing all the work for it myself and printing and publishing all that, and it isn't as cost effective. But really, what I do with the books, I want to actually do something that people really personally want. And even the thought of my first hurley. Really, it's like, everybody plays football or soccer or whatever, and your first boots or your boots are your thing, and
like
they're
Derry, Londonderry over here, we're feeling to everyone.
Not quite as controversial.
Well, hurley is such a personal thing to people. Like, if you play it, you know all about it. It's like if somebody picked up my hurley and
it's there as well. His first one.
My first one's here.
Here it is.
Look at this, folks.
The hurley.
Now, in terms of cutest things we've ever had in studio, that has to be the cutest thing I've ever held in my life. That is unbelievable.
All the way to under 14.
Yeah, well, look at I was never the biggest guy, so I had that for a long few years.
Tip colours. Paddy, hold that for us and tell us what's the story behind this hurl.
Well, the story behind.
Sorry, I'm calling it a hurl because I'm.
Oh, see, there you go. Yes.
Blade. I'm from Monaghan, so maybe I don't have the same right to.
Well, look, I mean, you have your own opinion. That'd be like me talking about football, I suppose. But no, this my own dad was a hurley maker. Obviously, retired from it now. And this was my first hurley, and for some reason, my mum just decided to keep this one, even though she didn't keep my brother's hurley. So I don't know what they were showing when they were young. But and I have pictures with it. It's very, very funny. I just looked for them pictures since I wrote the book.
Right.
And even the book, the hurley maker in it, I hadn't seen the pictures but resembles my dad an awful lot with the pictures that we've seen, the apron, the hair, everything like that. So obviously, you know, what I've seen all through my life came through with this, and luckily she held on to it and looking at it. I know the Tipperary colours might put a few off, but
what age were you when you had this one?
Oh, I'd say 1-2 years of age. Like, there's a picture of me in Semple Stadium, it's on the website, and I'm standing there with a few older fellas. Obviously my dad put me into it, and I'm just right in front of the old stand holding this very same hurley, so you can see. But you're looking at it, you know, it's pretty old looking. It's a fair relic at this stage, but I think it's a lovely thing to have, like, you know. But the only thing is, I was told if I lose it, I'm in serious trouble, so we can't be leaving it here today now. I was going
to say we need some cute things for our set here, but we wouldn't dream of taking that off you. So we'll talk us through because these books are I mean, I know they're being used in schools by teachers as well, and look, parents at home can maybe use some of the younger ones with the illustrations. But Up in the Air Muckfest, so this is the sequel to the Up in the Air book released in November 2020. So it's set a few weeks. This is the kids of Glenstown. Lost their county hurling final, and Muckfest is this famous festival that's been running in the town for the past 50 years. So what's the general? So what age group is it for, and what's the general story behind this?
The age group is probably in around your good 10-year-old, 11, 12, 13. That age. I have heard of younger kids, but maybe not every 9-year-old would be able to read it. And the story is really, I couldn't write the same book again. Like, you know, I got great feedback from the first one. It's your typical, we're going to win the county final, which we all dream about. But this one, like, I'd be bored writing the same thing again. I think kids would be bored, even if they don't realise it beforehand. So this is more like a few weeks later. Like, have you ever played in like street leagues at home, or parish league, we used to call it, where you under 14 or under 12, you're picked into your separate teams in the village. Now, we did in Borrislee. So, like, if you talk about intensity, like, you hate losing to your friend in training. Imagine if it's an actual match. So we had some rough times in our parish league. So it's based around that idea. Instead of working together, now it's more like civil war in Glenstown, where they all take on an identity. And you know, the thing I really want to do is there's one more female dominated team in it. And that whole look at females in sport, gender in sport, and something that I really, really enjoy doing. But in the middle of that, like, I don't like to write just about hurling. Like, there's an awful lot about hurling in it, but there's also other challenges in it during the week of Muckfest.
That's the interesting, one of the interesting themes, because like it's written through the character perspective of Fitzy, this main character, but Lizzie, the female character, like we just spoke to Alex Kavanagh, the Shelburne player, and you just talk about playing with boys teams growing up. But that's one of the themes in this book, is that you're talking about Lizzie, this mostly girls team, and trying to deal with the reception from the local community, thinking, oh, they're not good enough, they're only girls.
Yes.
So that's a very interesting strand to the
and I wouldn't claim to give it an answer, but I do think it's an interesting one in light today, because I know a lot of camogie and ladies football players, and their perspective is very, very interesting on it. And while I think the 2020 movement, I think it was absolutely unbelievable and phenomenal, and some people think maybe it was just a bit of a fad, but I think even at yourselves at News Talk doing a massive job at bringing ladies sport into the fore, that it has to be supported from everywhere. And I think even, number one, ladies themselves, the attendance at the games, you know, some of my friends would say there sometimes be more men at their female matches than women. So I think that's one aspect. The media themselves obviously are a lot more invested than they were, and I think it is going to a higher platform. You know, the ladies football final is one of the biggest female events in the world. We have our Irish soccer team now going to the World Cup, so I think it's going from strength to strength. But it's just to look at it, and okay, we're looking at the men's game, but I really think it can go higher and higher. But look, I suppose are we only the last 10 or 15 years where it's been taken to another level? The coaching is getting better, the exposure is getting better, more sponsorship, and I think, you know, the sky's the limit really in Ireland.
I know his brother as well. He's a good mark in Hattonham, and he wants to appeal to as broad a range as possible. So like everyone in the country buy this book, like, you know.
Well, that would be ideal now, you know.
Yeah. The more the better. It's funny that you've got the two pigs, the King and Queen pig, mascots of the Muckfest, mentioned in the title, but Puck Fair elements to this.
Puck Fair element, of course. I was at Puck Fair. Yeah, very. I was wondering whether I could release it or not.
The pigs are locked up in this.
Well, the pigs now aren't up on a height. They're not exposed to the hot weather. But I think, like, if we're talking about Ireland, like I'll say I write about hurling there, but the couple of books I've written is more about Irish kids, Irish society, and what makes it special to me, and especially in the rural setting. Like, I'm very lucky to grow up in a lovely rural setting, and really Muckfest is a festival day run, but it's more like a symbol of what makes every place special. and different in Ireland, and I just think we're so unique, and we're so unique to have Gaelic games, and all sports really, but Gaelic games especially. It just runs through us, and it's our medium to where we live. I find like that. Sure, the first thing is how are the team going and how did the match go last day, and I just think it's so special every place, and definitely Puck Fair was a sort of a trigger, a sort of something that I wanted to explore, and you know I thought more of the pigs would be a nice little element of it, and there's a pig run at the start where the pigs are chasing them, and that's to decide who are the captains of the team, or the head pigs as we call them. So it's just my own little maybe a little different, but it's the way I was thinking about it, and just really enjoyed doing something a little bit off centre. And
it's probably the type of book you would have wanted to read at that age.
Yeah, I suppose. Look, Shane, the first book I spoke at length about my struggles when I was young, like when I was in maybe first class. I'd be coming home with 1 out of 10 in my spellings and 2 out of 10 in my spellings. So when I was young, the only thing I had, do you remember around the 90s, it was Match magazine and
Shoot. I was a Shoot man.
Yeah,
I was a Match man, I have to say.
Oh, yeah. I was more Shoot, I'd say. Yeah,
every Tuesday Match came out and I'd read it back to front. Yeah.
And the posters all over the wall and all that stuff. Yeah. The 4 pages and the 8 page posters. So that's all nostalgia to me. But back then, I can't really remember much GA stuff to read. So I think back then the soccer, was very attractive. It was glorified, really, and I think it's very nice to have other things. And I know there's some other writers at the minute who have great sports books, GA books for youngsters as well. And I think if you can, like I see in school, I'm an English teacher. We try to get a book that can broaden their horizons, But I think sometimes you need a bridge, something that they're already interested, that can already relate to. And then just getting them, reading from there, get their literacy improved from there, and then we maybe can go on to broader topics. But I like something that can already bridge it, they can get their teeth into it straight away, and I think sport in Ireland is one of those things.
Totally.
For any teachers or parents watching who want to maybe get one for a younger audience, we've got this one, someone in the comments as well, Danny Max straight away, it's a Hurley.
Oh,
this is going to cause
go on, Danny.
Mayhem. But my first Hurley. So maybe talk to us about this one. This is a new one, illustrated by Tom Doyle, I should mention as well. But so this was for a younger age group.
Younger, yeah. I mean, look at if reading wise. I mean, the reading isn't overly complicated in it, so you'd probably be saying reading wise 6, 7, 8. But like I've been doing photo shoots and been giving it to my friends' kids now, and they're 3 and 4, and even the pictures quite easy to look
like
through.
Some of the, not spoiler alert here for some of the pages, but like you can see some great illustrations. It's really well done for a young kid, I think.
Tom, you mentioned Tom there. Tom is Yellow Belly on, that's his handle. He's not a Yellow Belly, but he's that's his handle online on Instagram and Twitter. I think it's only right to give Tom a mention, because I went to him, I'd say only about 3 months ago, with this idea.
Brilliant.
And a script and a direction, and I kind of,
sometimes speed is the mother of invention. Just you got to do it.
Yeah, just got to go.
Don't overthink it.
Yeah, and I had loads of parents asking me the last time I had a book out about maybe something for the younger child, and I think, very validly, and just said this time, God, I'll go for it. Like, probably he was pulling his hair out at me, I'm sure. I wanted it so quick, but he did some job over a few week period. But the key is, Tom is like a hurling person. So
he knows a hurl from a hurley.
He knows a hurl from a hurley, and I think he's more of a hurl man in Wexford now, but he knows a hurl from a hurley. But I didn't have to go back to him too many times, because he already knew, and this was even a new style for him, and he just took it on. And like I'm so happy with that. Like, I'm delighted to write the longer book and for the older kid, but I'd love to be an illustrator myself. I wish I had the talent, but he just, he knocked it out of the park for me, and couldn't be happier with it.
This one, so just reading the description of this one. So Fitzy, Lizzie and Bones, the characters, going to get their first Hurley. So they get up early, cycle to Old Neil's spooky workshop, meet Old Neil, the Hurley maker, and then see their first Hurleys being made. But it's like Ollivander's wand shop in Harry Potter, where they go in, the 3 characters go in and get their mystical first wand, and the wand chooses them. Does the Hurl choose the kid?
The Hurley, I don't know how I'm going to call it.
Hurley, we'll go with both,
But it is, you would often hear it referred to as your wand, and it is, and it's such a personal thing to people. Like, it's scary. Like, I don't really like people pick mine up, because I know they're probably going to insult it, because everyone is so different. Like, I like a really feather light one, whatever it is. Weekends, I don't know what it is, or flicking as a back man, you have to flick in and try and get the ball, and then, but other guys prefer a thicker handle, or a more timber, heavier head on it, heavier boss, or a flat handle or a round handle. So there's such a variation to it, and it's such a personal thing to people. And if I picked it up and I didn't like something, somebody might get sour about you not liking their Hurley. So that is, and that is the story behind it. But during it, like, I wanted it to be a story, all right, a journey for the kids in it, but also it's the practical element of showing them how a hurley is actually made. So it goes through in it that you have your different style. You know, Kilkenny might have a style, Tipperary style, Waterford style. You choose that first, and then you go into you know, you cut, you draw it out, then you cut with the bandsaw, you plane it down, and then you finish it off. And that's kind of what I knew as growing up. Like the sound of a bandsaw to me is still so familiar. And you know, the sprinkle of sawdust in the air, I think it's magical enough. Like I feel like it's magical going to the workshop, and to me, it's like if you could go to Santa's workshop. Like that's the closest thing anyone could get to Santa's workshop is going into a hurley workshop, and it's hopefully the kids will, you know, see that too.
It's like Dijk and Ali and Harry Potter's the equivalent is Boris Ali and your sawdust covered factory in Tipperary. It's funny, one of those things, like just in snooker, I know like a lot of snooker players have talked about the cue being an extension of their arm.
Yes.
Nearly. Like
how can you tell the dancer from the dance?
Well, this is it. And I remember Stephen Hendry, his cue was damaged on a flight. I think he put the flight in the undercarriage, and he never played the same. There, like this was kind of towards the end of his career anyway, but he just couldn't find a cue because he had that cue for all of his world title wins and that. So is it similar in hurling? Like you have a hurling or hurley, and it's part of you.
Oh, without doubt. They always, like, you couldn't use a new hurley really coming up to a match, like especially big match. I know a lot of guys, if they have a hurley, they're only using it in the match. Like, so for training, different. Now I had to be comfortable with mine, and you know, often had a few tears after breaking it in training. But it's certainly an extension of it. It's that weight. It's what suits your being. My hurleys are so light. Like the under-15s I train pick it up and they find it light. You know, so I'm a grown adult, and it has to suit your position. We hear Sean Finn talking about it recently. He's cornerback, he uses a 37 or 36. When he's centre back, he uses a 33.
Wow.
and I'd be the same. Like I'd probably 34.5-inch hurley. And I'd love to go smaller. It'd be easier to manage it. But the amount of times I've just hooked somebody by that much, I've just got that touch on the ball when I'm blocking somebody down. So my position, I can't afford. All the forwards can afford to have the smaller hurleys, you know.
It's tougher for your position.
Yeah, but even Ollie Canning, I think it was 06, he got his hurley taken at a press junket before the All-Ireland. Like, it was nearly a nationwide hunt for it, like, you know.
One of the greats,
absolutely.
It's one of those things, yeah. You don't think about the significance and the importance of it until you hear an actual.
Well, that's true. I thought people would, but obviously, it looks like it's like a pair of boots, or it's like whatever bit of equipment, like a helmet. But no, it's certainly special, and people can have them years. I definitely have my current hurley since 2015, I'd say.
Right.
And hoping and praying that it doesn't break, but I think the hurleys are going to outlast me playing hurling at this stage.
Before we let you go, Paddy, we should ask about next season in Tipperary and how you feel. I mean, Liam Cahill, 3-year term in the summer to replace Colin Bonner. I mean, Limerick are just it's hard to see the end of their dominance, but I mean, there are teams catching up. How do you feel Tipperary are set in terms of closing that gap?
Yeah, I think it's a bit of an unknown at the minute, Shane, because probably last year, you know, it was a little lifeless. It was a little definitely inconsistent. But I think Liam going into it, it reminds me of 2008 when Liam Sheedy went in. We were at a little bit of a low ebb. There's not much expectation on Tipperary next year. I think, you know yourself, that brings motivation, that brings a lot of energy, that brings guys that are pretty angry playing. And Liam Cahill is quite a tough manager, and he has a great backroom team behind him as well. So I could see him actually doing quite well. I don't think any team, bar Limerick obviously, are an insurmountable challenge. I think they could give a challenge to any team if they're organised, if they're fit, if they have the fire and drive, which I think they will, because a couple of years of underachievement, I think he'll do that to you. Certainly I remember going in, I was called in the same year in 08 on a permanent basis, and the team was ready to change. I mean, I suppose they were looking at Kilkenny winning for a long time during that stage, and now I suppose we're all looking at Limerick winning. But I think it's very encouraging. Last year, you know, that Kilkenny team that drove them all the way in that final, like if you put that against other Kilkenny teams before, I don't think I'm disrespecting anyone to say the individuals probably aren't as good, but it just showed they were able to find a way. Semi-final against, you know, Galway, I think it was, pretty close match. Very close. Munster final, gone to extra time. So I think they're brilliant to actually, and it shows how good they are, like that Dublin football team, to be up for it over and over. Like, they can't be as up for matches as the hungrier teams who haven't won in a long time. I think that's impossible myself.
Neutraliser, like.
Exactly, but it just shows their quality, that they're still able to get over the line over and over. So we'd be hoping that'll change at some stage.
We before I let you go, sitting in those seats, we had Jimmy Marr and John O'Keefe, former teammates of Dylan Quirk, and it's been a very emotional year in the Tipperary Club Championship. And I know Kilruan McDonough's, who were the team playing against Dylan Quirk's club, Clonalty Rossmore, in that match, the fateful match where he lost his life. They went on to lift the Tipperary Senior Championship, first time in 37 years. It almost felt fateful that's what happened. And great images of the team standing and sitting in that spot in Sebba Stadium, holding aloft the red helmet in tribute to him. Such an emotional time in Tipperary over the last while since that happened.
Yeah, it is. I suppose the whole championship has had the mark of Dylan Quirk on it. I just think the Kilruan lads really held themselves so well. Obviously be at the funeral and that, but they were there as a team. They were there in huge support of Clonalty. And to think of him straight away after the match, after 37 years, because I know what that felt like. We were something similar when we won the county final, and your head is just gone, But Liam O'Kelly, in fairness, as manager there, really drove the message of Dylan, that they were carrying Dylan as well with him. And again, Irish, it's such a unique thing in the GA, in Irish sport, that we're so close. We're killing each other some of the time, but really at the end of the day, we're all for the one cause. And I thought it was very emotional. And even I know some of the Clonalty guys were up in Clough-Jordan, which is in Kilruan, there over the last few days, and a bond there, as they say themselves, there's a bond there that'll never ever be broken, and it is a lovely part of our game and our culture.
Yeah, here. Listen, Paddy, you've been great with your time. Thanks a million for coming up. For people, whether it's teachers or parents or whatever, that want to get their hands on a copy of the book, you mentioned the website. Where else can people?
Yeah, well, it's all bookshops in Tipperary, really, and then I just do it online from my own website then, so that worked.
That's
very,
Paddy
very
Stapleton.
Well. PaddyStapleton.ie, yeah, and sure, look, it's actually out. I meant to say that. This is very important. It's actually out today.
That's out today.
So, yeah, exclusive now for Off the Ball. So brilliant. Yeah, it's out today. All the bookshops in Tipperary, and say get it online as well. And we've them too, and the original one, and a couple of little treats on the website as well.
Sorted for what that horrible Christmas present list. What am I going to get now? I know, well,
I'm going to get Paddy.
I'm delighted.
I'm going to get Paddy to sign these as well, just to add a little bit of value to my ones.
Well, it could take value, I think, for my signature.
Not at all. Paddy, thanks a million as always for coming into us. Paddy Stapleton there, of course, Boris Ali, and former Tipperary hurler as well. That's all we have time for on OTB AM on this Wednesday morning, 9:40 AM on this Wednesday. Back tomorrow morning, as always. Cork and Nemo Rangers Luke Connolly will be on the line. Daniel Davey will be in studio to talk about his new nutrition book, and we'll have plenty more besides. Right now, though, we're leaving you with Rory O'Connor on last night's show. Enjoy and see you tomorrow. Good luck.
Hey, Rory O'Connor of the Irish Independent is with us. Good evening.
Hey Joe, how's it going?
Great, full of lactic acid, I presume. Well done on the marathon.
Yeah, I can barely. Mick suggested coming in, and I was going to jump on the bike, and then I realised that I couldn't move my legs properly, so it was better to do it online. So
good man.
But yeah, it went well.
Did it? You survived, and happy with your time? Did you run all the way? Tougher than you thought?
I made all the classic mistakes, but I ran all the way. Yeah, no, I got in 4:25 or so, and set out too quick. Made the traditional mistake of setting off too quick, and paid the price in the last 5 or 6 kilometres. But no, it was really it's an amazing day. I've never really appreciated how good it is, and I think even if I don't run it again, I'll be definitely going back to cheer on those who do.
Good man. And what have you raised for Crumlin Children's Hospital in the end?
Yeah, I think we're at 31,000 now, wow, which is a lot more than I ever could have envisaged. But thanks to listeners who would have contributed and people who've done it. It was a pretty emotional day running past Crumlin, where my son Malky died, and even finishing at Hollis Street where he was born was just it all felt quite symmetrical, and it was an amazing day. And to be able to there's people in there as he ran past who are going through what we went through earlier this year, so to be able to try and help them is pretty special.
Well, congratulations, amazing thing to have done.
Thanks, Joe.
So Saturday, it's coming quickly into view now. Ireland will name their team Thursday. I've just gone through the South African team there. What jumps out to you?
It's the fact, I think, that they've put what would have traditionally been the bomb squad front row in the starting lineup. So what they would have done in the World Cup and in most of their big games was have Kitsoff, Marks and Malherbe coming on after about 45 minutes against a tired front row, plus a couple of big second rows as well, and basically grinding the opposition into submission. And for this game, they're starting that trio. So looking at their profile, looking at their weight, they're there to scrummage, and I think they're there to grind the Irish front row trio of Porter, Sheehan and Furlong down. And we all know how important Porter Sheehan and Furlong are to the way Ireland play in terms of their ability to catch pass, their ability to carry, to win collisions in the tight, because we don't have the size of second row that South Africa can bring to the table, and even a back row for that carrying threat. So Porter's really important to Ireland. He's seen as a bit of a scrummaging liability by opposition nations. He's been highlighted by referees. He's fallen foul a couple of times, and I think putting Malherbe there, like he's listed at 125 kilos. The Stormers have him down at 130. That's more than 20 stone. He's an enormous man. He's just, he blocks out the sun when he comes into the room. Kitsop is probably the best loose head scrummager in the world. Marks is a phenomenon, and then they have really good props to bring off the bench, even though it's not those guys. Actually, what they're bringing off the bench is a more dynamic, smaller unit who can all play. So it's almost a reverse of what they traditionally have done, and that strikes me that they're going to go after Ireland physically right from the start, which is no real surprise, but the way they're going about it is very interesting.
Yeah, okay. So what's their logic in the usual way that they do it then?
Well, I think that maybe what they're looking at is an Ireland front row. Maybe they see the weakness in the Ireland front row replacements and think that we can get our starting props out and actually finish them. That we need to match our best. Ireland's best front row is so superior to the second best front row that we'll get our best front rows out there. They generally finish with their strongest side. So it's interesting that they've gone and done that. And like there's no the guys are bringing off the bench, Nietzsche, Bongi Omanami and Vincent Koch, who hasn't played this season. He's only just signed because he was at Wasps. He's only just signed for Stade Francais. They're really good players as well. They're just not maybe the mass and maybe not the technicians, but Koch is still one of the best scrummaging tight heads in the world. So they're not weak coming off the bench, whereas they possibly see a weakness in our. They possibly think that trio can still get on top, but that with this starting trio, they can match what Ireland have to start and better them and grind. They just want to sap the life out of the Irish tight five, and in particular those front rows. They want to drain them down through the maul, through the scrum. They're going to bring just that, that slow poison game plan that they implement so well. It's so effective, and it's not pretty to watch, but it's enthralling when they get it right. So I think that's part of what they're trying to do. They also have Etzebeth and Lou de Jager, two enormous men in the second row. They've got Peter Steff to 6, so they have size throughout, and they have then the bench to bring on. But they brought two open sides, effectively, two fetchers off the bench as well. So they want to go after Ireland's breakdown in that last 25 minutes. So the game plan is I think they're kind of flipping what they normally do, which is going to be interesting to see.
And that's not even to mention the back three. For all that we talk about their physicality, I mean, they're lightning.
They are, and what that tight five do is that they tire out opposition teams, so that when they come up against Ches and Colby, they're absolutely wrecked. And when he starts doing what he does, he just skips by them because they don't have the energy left to kind of make those tackles that they would normally do. So there's method to it's not madness, it's method to the kind of conservative approach, and we saw in that World Cup final in against England, and they're not playing as well as they were in that World Cup, but in that World Cup final they cut loose in the last 20 minutes. They scored wonderful tries, but it was based on the fact that it absolutely exhausted England. I mean, Joe Marler just didn't have the energy to lay a glove on Mapipi for his try, or maybe it was Cheslin Colby for his try, but they were quality tries that kind of embellished what had been a brutal, bruising, ultra effective rugby game plan and performance. And I don't necessarily. I think I think everyone who watched the Lions tour kind of came away, not everyone, but I came away kind of embittered by it. But I think it was because the Lions tried to match their style with a similar style. But when it's a clash of styles like we're going to see on Saturday, I think when Ireland, I think that's going to be fascinating to watch. It's not necessarily ragging on the South Africans; they're entitled to play the way they want to play. But in order to beat them, you're going to have to come up with something.
South Africa's form this year, they've played 9 games. 6 wins and 3 defeats. So they lost to Australia away in August. They lost to New Zealand as well at home in August. And then they lost to Wales in Bloemfontein in July, 13 points to 12. But they did win that series 2-1. So 9 games, 6 wins, 3 defeats. So not invincible either. And the point has been made. You look at the loss of Am in particular at outside centre. Damien Willemse is a 10. Pollard being injured. And Jantis, who's obviously played quite a bit for them this year, omitted for disciplinary reasons. So they're not at full strength. Ireland's injury profile is pretty reasonable. Ireland at home Ireland at the start of a season and fresh South Africa at the end of a long year. To what extent is the psychology here important with a view to the World Cup game, that if Ireland can't beat them here under these circumstances, then come World Cup, neutral venue and presumably a fresher South Africa, that it will be a major advantage to South Africa if they win in Dublin? Or is this weekend irrelevant?
No, I think it's relevant. I don't think anyone who followed the build up to the 2019 World Cup and the damage that was inflicted by England in the Six Nations, but also in what we all thought was going to be an irrelevant World Cup warm up, inflicted. So if South Africa come to Dublin and dominate the Irish pack in the way that I have a slight fear that they're going to, because we've seen this collection of forwards dominated by La Rochelle. We've seen them dominated by Saracens. We've seen them dominated by England at times. Even when Ireland won in the Six Nations, the Irish scrum crumbled at Twickenham. There is a risk there for Ireland that they are built to play against the likes of New Zealand and play that, and their game plan really works against New Zealand, whereas they don't have the critical mass in a sense to overcome a team of the athletic profile of a South Africa, and that's the challenge for them. And I don't think a defeat is necessarily damaging, but it's the nature of it. If South Africa come and they are dominant in every way, and they basically win the line-out maul, eke penalties out of the line-out maul, eke penalties out of the scrum, kick to the corner, maul over, and repeatedly do that in the way that Saracens have done to Leinster over the years and to Munster, then that could be psychologically damaging to this Ireland team who definitely took a hit from their run into the 2019 World Cup. So that's the fear, but you've got to, from an Ireland point of view, you've got to put your chest out and say, we're number one in the world for a reason. We've just won a series in New Zealand. We were a whisker away from winning in Paris that would have potentially led to a Grand Slam. We had the best defence in the Six Nations, the best attack in the Six Nations. France are probably the best team in the world right now, on many levels, and Ireland ran them close. And if we get our stuff right on Saturday, we're faster than the South African team. We can move these massive men around the pack, and we can find openings, and we can inflict the psychological damage on them. So there's no doubt there's a risk there for Ireland, but there's also massive potential upside if they can be the ones inflicting the damage. And there's nothing to say that they can't. It's a really, because these teams haven't played in 5 years, and when they last did, South Africa were completely unrecognisable shambles of an outfit. It's a very different proposition, and that's what makes this game utterly fascinating. Like, since Ireland beat New Zealand last year, I've been looking forward to this game. Not in the summer, the November game. I came away from that game that night. I want to see this Irish team play against South Africa, because I think that's the true test of where they're at. South Africa and France have the profile of player that Ireland struggle with, and if they can find a way of beating them, if they can do it playing the way they do, like it's almost a good versus bad scenario. They play rugby that kind of, they're thrilling to watch, and if it can be effective against a team that play this slow poison, forward dominant game, then they can write their own narrative.
I was watching back over the weekend South Africa, New Zealand in South Africa from the summer, and one of the things, anytime you watch them, the physicality jumps out, but the other aspect of their play that day, and this is a game they lost ultimately, but the line speed in defence is frightening. They are all or nothing, shooting up out of the line. And that day, New Zealand managed to cope very well. They had little clever cross kicks. They had several passes before contact and managed to create openings. At times in the past, Ireland have struggled with that kind of ferocious line speed. It does feel of late, over the last 12 brilliant months, in particular over Farrell, that they've got to grips with that type of a defence. But the South African one is as good as anything out there.
Yeah, Jacques Nienaber, who Munster fans will know well, and Munster players in particular will know well and respect highly, is the head coach of South Africa. Like, Rassie Erasmus pulls an awful lot of the strings, but defence is his zone, and he is an excellent, clever, intelligent defence coach. A self-made man. He didn't play the game at the highest level. He's kind of come up on Erasmus's bootstraps, and he is an impressive figure who will have studied Ireland in intricate detail. I think every coach in the world is looking at Ireland right now. It was striking at the URC launch. Every team was talking about trying to mirror how Ireland plays. So they're also looking at how Ireland can be shut down, and that again was the challenge in 19 when Ireland came around a corner in front, but Eddie Jones worked out a way of beating them. And Ireland need to keep evolving, keep getting better at what they do. They do challenge that line speed by going both ways, so that just when it looks like they're going to attack right, Gibson Park might go down the blind side with a kind of a wave of players who fold late and come around and just challenge that line speed, because often it's not as effective on the blind side because teams are they can pull out unexpected moves at the last minute, which disguise what their intentions are, which fools line speed sometimes. But there's no question this is a massive offensive challenge for Johnny Sexton and his team, and they need their captain to be as smart as he's shown himself to be in the last couple of months. They need him to be at the top of their game, because if they're losing those collisions, he's going to have a difficult afternoon. And whether it's Murray or Gibson Park, both of those may be digging out dirty ball, and Ireland may need to go to the air more than they would ordinarily like. They may need to be smarter about this. They may need to pick their battles in the way that they did in Paris, and when they get their moments, take them. So it's a different challenge for Ireland, and that's what's, again, it's a far more interesting game than a lot of the games we've seen, because we just don't know how Ireland will adapt to the way South Africa play.
That parallel with 2018 is so striking in so many ways. You mentioned other coaches very much looking at Ireland, and that feels akin to what happened and was exploited at the beginning of 19 when England and Jones came out with a plan to beat Ireland and did it in Dublin. And so I think that's maybe one of the reasons nobody's getting overly excited or carried away with themselves, either within the squad or even looking on with regard to the World Cup, because there's just an understanding of how much rugby there still is to be played. That said, it does feel like the team had almost stopped evolving at this stage in 18 into 19, whereas Farrell and Sexton and the team at large now do seem more cognizant of the fact that things are going to have to keep changing, and they can't just sit in their hands and pray the World Cup gets here as quickly as possible.
It was funny, Farrell was asked about it last week, and he said it's not necessarily about evolving, it's about getting better at what we do. So they feel like they have a very strong template and they can keep refining it and keep getting better with it. And that's he was there for the whole 18 into 19 experience, and that's the lesson he's taken from it. The RFU have put huge stock into the psychological side of things, and they've Dave Nusafora did his briefing last week and was talking about they've hired a full-time sports psychologist now. They've Gary Keegan there with the team to try and make sure that they're mentally strong as well, so even if they do endure the kind of defeat that they had in 2019 Six Nations, that they can bounce back, that it's not going to knock them off kilter. But yeah, everyone's studying them, and they're you're world number one. You're playing an exciting, innovative, attacking brand of play. You're brilliant to watch. Every analyst in the world is trying to figure out what you're doing, both to see whether they can copy bits and pieces from what you're doing, but also how can we stop you if we come up against you. Like, I think the big thing that's stopping people from getting too excited really is the fact that Ireland, South Africa, France, and New Zealand are on the same side of the draw, and even the greatest Irish team of all time on their greatest day is in a 50-50 battle against any of those opponents. So that's where I think it's difficult to get carried away this time around. But there certainly isn't they need to discover a couple of players during this window, but they also need to just keep advancing, just keep adding little layers, little wrinkles onto what they're doing, so that they're just one step ahead of the competition.
You mentioned Murray or Gibson Park. What are the selection calls for Thursday?
Back three's big, Gibson Park and Hugo Keenan haven't played any rugby this season. Jacob Stockdale's coming back from an injury. Back three, Earls, Lowe are out. There's a few more injuries there as well. Andrew Conway's not available. So it's the makeup of that back three. Does he go for the kind of players who've been playing regularly, say, Mike Lowry at fullback and Balakoon on one wing with Matt Hansen on the other, or does he trust in Stockdale with left boot to come in for Lowe and trust in Hugo Keenan based on what he's done for the team? And then the other big one is scrum half, because Gibson Park just hasn't played. So does he put him on the bench and hope that he gets 25 minutes? It's a hamstring, so that could be tricky. Or do you play, do you start Murray? He also physically matches up well against South Africa. He has that physical presence, that defensive solidity that's there. And although he's not the most sexy figure in rugby right now, every time he's selected, he's kind of taken over that role from Rob Kearney, that whenever he's selected as groans of derision, he's still a high quality rugby player with bags of experience. So Craig Casey had an injury coming into this week. He might have been more in contention, I think. I could be wrong, he could be right in there, but he's having a good season, so he could have been in there. And it's whether Ireland go try and match up 6-2 on the bench with 6 forwards. I don't think they will. They might be tempted given what they're seeing from the South Africans, but other than that, I think the pack relatively picks itself as long as everyone's fit and healthy.
Conor Murray was across the Sunday papers talking about his 100th cap. So this would be his 100th cap, or will be his 100th cap on Saturday. And one of the lines in one of the pieces was, as he wins his 100th cap, he's never been more uncherished, which is unfortunate, but probably true with Murray. It's worth remembering what an extraordinary player he's been for Ireland, and maybe he's been overly derided, I think, of late.
And he's not an old man, you know. He's still got a couple of years left. And I think I listened to your pay-per-view yesterday or on Sunday, and that the you know, that injury definitely took a toll in 2018, and he hasn't been the same player, and he's under pressure at Munster because Casey's coming strong, and he doesn't do what Gibson Park does. So it's not like for like, but for this game, behind a pack that may be getting overwhelmed a little bit, maybe he's the man to be there to steady the ship, and with all of his experience, kind of get the best out of the players around him, and then you bring on Gibson Park to run the legs off those big South Africans in the last 20 minutes. It's an interesting one. Farrell's definitely said, Conor Murray will win his 100 cap in this game, so he's involved. It's just whether he's going to be starting her off the bench is the big call. And look, he's never let Ireland down. It's not, there's not one point where you could say he's cost Ireland the game or anything. It's just, I think, because of the way Gibson Park plays and the excitement that he brings, he's maybe suffering in comparison to that.
So, final thoughts with a view to Saturday then. You've mentioned your worries about the pack, and they're well-founded, I suspect. What way do you think it's going to go on Saturday?
It's really hard to tell. The lack of form guide is difficult. I think Ireland would have liked to build into this fixture and play the games in reverse, with Australia first, Fiji in the middle, and South Africa last up, and that would allow them to build some form into it. The fact that Ireland have a couple of players that have not played yet this season, that's a big concern, and I think we'll know more on Thursday when the team is named, and whether those players are backed or whether he's going with is it time to give Mike Lowry a game and a big game and find out more about him, because ultimately this is a November test and not a Six Nations game or a World Cup game, and maybe Hugo Lloris will be injured by the time these teams next play, but I have a sense, and I've always long had a sense, that Ireland will struggle. This Ireland pack will struggle against the France and South Africa, France's and South Africa's of this world, really. France and South Africa, and I think that may be in evidence on Saturday. That front row to me is a frightening one, and if they can get it right, if they can get enough scrums, Ireland need to not drop the ball on Saturday. They need to make sure that whatever the defensive pressure that's coming on is, they need to not play into the South African hands. They need to keep the ball alive. They need to move it quickly, and they need to just not give up scrums. They need to keep the ball on the pitch. They need to play at a high tempo. They need to tire the South Africans out, because they are more kind of dynamic, more probably fitter, more mobile, more agile, and they can challenge South Africa if they keep the ball alive and keep challenging South Africa in different ways in the way that they do. But if they get drawn into an arm wrestle and kind of let South Africa kind of get that line out, get that maul, slow it down, kick it to the corner, maul over or earn a penalty, get a scrum, sap the legs out of them, they could be in trouble. But this is where we find out about this Ireland team, and they look really good so far, and they've overcome pretty much every hurdle apart from France in this cycle. So that's what makes this so fascinating as a one-off game with that World Cup in mind next year. So I think if you gave me a fiver, I'd probably put on South Africa right now, but again, I haven't seen the Ireland team, so it's still a bit cautious.
No, that's fair enough. Rory O'Connor of the Irish Independent, thank you very much.
Thanks, Joe.
Cheers.
OTB AM with Gillette in association with Movember. Effortless shave, magnificent modes.